Chapter 602, Deadly Question. If one day, when you become an official in a certain place, a bandit captures your wife and eldest daughter and uses them to threaten you. The mountain elder's voice was very calm, but when he spoke, everyone's ears could not help but prick up. Even Gu Yundong was the same. He stopped in the middle of his sentence and Qi Ting whispered, "My grandfather must be asking if he could protect his country in the face of the threat of the bandits. He should sacrifice his wife and daughter's lives to serve the country." Even those who had been officials had such thoughts. This question was a repeated one without any novelty. But very quickly, the mountain elder changed the topic and asked, "And you can only save one person. Are you going to save your wife or your daughter?" Everyone was speechless. Qi Ting felt his face hurt a little. "Grandfather, your question is abnormal." Gu Yundong sighed secretly. Mountain Elder Qi was trying to stir up trouble. This was like a woman asking a man who should be saved first when his mother and wife fell into the water at the same time. As expected, Mountain Elder Qi had a gloating look in his eyes. He picked up the teacup and took another sip. He smiled and said, "Think about it slowly. There's no hurry." Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, Gu Dajiang said decisively, "There's no need for me to save them." The mountain elder stopped in his tracks. The others looked at him in shock. "I didn't expect you to be such a ruthless person. You don't even want the lives of your wife and daughter. Why? Are you going to marry another woman and have children with her?" Everyone looked at Madame Yang and Gu Yundong with sympathy. However, Madame Yang looked confused while Gu Yundong looked calm. Gu Dajiang continued, "Other than my strength, I can only talk. My daughter, Yundong, is very skilled. She can save my wife. If I go over, it'll cause trouble for her." Gu Yundong smiled. Yes, that was it. Mountain Elder Qi almost spat out his tea. He looked up at Gu Dajiang and saw that he still looked proud. He was speechless. He looked at Gu Yundong again. This young lady's martial arts were good. Her arms and legs looked like they could be broken with a little force. The others also felt that Gu Dajiang was clearly looking for an excuse. The mountain elder steadied himself and said again, "What if your daughter were also helpless and could only wait for you to save her?" Gu Dajiang did not blurt out. Instead, he lowered his eyes and thought for a moment before asking seriously, "Then how far away are the robbers from me?" Qi Ting frowned. "What does that have to do with anything? You just have to answer which one to save first. Of course it's related. The situation is different, and the rescue plan is also different. There are ways to attack from afar, and close combat methods. How can they be the same? As long as the method is planned well, both of them can be saved. There's no need to choose at all." Qi Ting was instantly speechless. It seemed like that was indeed the case. The corner of the mountain elder's mouth twitched. Was he trying to avoid the main point? That would depend on whether he was willing or not. He was someone who wanted to cause trouble. How could he let it go just like that? Hence, Mountain Elder Qi said coldly, "You're not far from the bandits. They're only about 20 steps away." "Do the bandits have a sharp weapon?" "They do." "In or out of the city?" "Outside the city." "Are there any woods or ponds nearby?" "No." "Do I have any weapons or ropes or anything that's useful?" Is there no end to this question? Mountain Elder Qi straightened his body slightly. "No, you don't have anything that can be used. The other party has enough men and you are alone outside the city. They're not far. It's very dry without rain. There's no place to hide in the surrounding. So who do you want to save first?" Chapter 603, the second question. After Mountain Elder Qi finished speaking, he saw Gu Dajiang looking at him with an indescribable expression. He frowned. "Why? Is there another problem?" Gu Dajiang said, "Since the other party has sufficient manpower and am the only one without help, life-saving items, or a place to hide, why did the bandits capture my wife and daughter to threaten me? Wouldn't they just tie me up?" "Pfft, Gu Yundong quickly covered her mouth and silently turned her head to look at a painting hanging on the wall not far away. Yes, it was written very boldly. She could not understand it at all, but she had to pretend to be very serious. The others in the Fate Hut were speechless. The mountain elder's tea stuck in his throat. He suddenly turned to look at Gu Yundong and asked with a smile, "Little girl, you don't seem to care who your father saves first. Why don't you tell me who you want to save first if your father and mother are in danger at the same time?" It wasn't over yet. Gu Yundong looked at the constipated mountain elder who had been choked by Gu Dajiang. She smiled and said, "Grandpa Mountain Elder seems to like asking this question. Why don't you tell me who you will save first if young Master Qi and student Kai fall into the water at the same time? I'm the one asking you now. Why are you asking me instead?" Gu Yundong nodded innocently. "That's right. It's Grandpa Mountain Elder who's evaluating my father now. Why are you asking about me? I've never thought of entering Tianhai Academy. Like the father, like the daughter. They had the same eloquence." The mountain elder was a little angry. No wonder Qin Wenjing had written in the letter that he could go ahead with the test, no matter how difficult it was. How could he do the exam? The student asked more questions than the teacher. After that, she even looked at him like he was old and his brain was not working well. It seemed that he would not be able to get an answer to the first question even if he asked again. He would just take it that the man had passed. All right. The first question is considered passed. Let's go to the second question next. Gu Dajiang sat upright and nodded. "Please ask, Mountain Elder." "I won't ask this time. The second question is for you to do something." "What is it?" The mountain elder pointed outside. "I'll give you an hour. Go to the lecture hall and ask each of the 20 students for a piece of calligraphy or painting." "Calligraphy or painting?" "Yes, what's the problem?" Gu Dajiang shook his head. "No problem." Gu Yundong thought for a moment. It was 2 hours. On average, it was 3 minutes for each student. This did not include the time needed to go back and forth. It was indeed quite urgent. The problem was that students were very protective of their calligraphy and paintings these days. It was unlikely that they would casually hand them over to others, let alone a complete stranger. Gu Yundong looked at Mountain Elder Qi, who also looked at her and laughed. "Let's begin now." He gestured at Gu Dajiang. "Yes, sir." Gu Dajiang nodded but did not walk out. Instead, he walked to Gu Yundong's ear and whispered a few words. When Gu Yundong heard this, she nodded with a smile and took out something from her sleeve. In fact, it was taken from the space, but others could not see it. Qi Ting craned his neck to take a look, but Gu Dajiang quickly put it away without letting anyone see it. Then, he turned around and cupped his hands at Mountain Elder Qi. "I'll go now. You only have an hour." Mountain Elder Qi reminded him. Chapter 604, Gu Dajiang is finished. Gu Dajiang smiled. That should be enough. Then, under everyone's curious gazes, he strode out of the Fate Hut. His back was tall and straight, and he was not afraid at all. Qi Ting was a little itchy and wanted to know how he could get it. Therefore, he pulled a student beside him and whispered, "Brother Zhua, follow him and see how he does it." "All right, I'll go now." Zhua Guang was excited. Clearly, he was also very curious and wanted to see it. While Mountain Elder Qi was not paying attention, he quietly slipped out of the Fate Hut through the side door. Only then did the Mountain Elder look at Gu Yundong. He looked at her curiously. When she first entered, this little girl was submissive and did not have a strong presence. She looked like a little girl who relied on her parents to go out and broaden her horizons and meet her elders. Other than greeting him at the beginning, she stood behind Madame Yang and held her sister's hand without saying anything. Later on, Gu Dajiang said that his daughter was quite skilled, so he paid more attention to this girl. Until she couldn't help but burst out laughing. When she answered his question, she had a calm and composed image without any fear. Her presence was so strong that no one could ignore her. This young lady was quite interesting. He could not help but pour a cup of tea for Gu Yundong and asked, "What did you give your father?" Gu Yundong drank the tea quickly, but she did not answer his question honestly. "Won't Grandpa Mountain Elder know in a while? You're quite tight-lipped." The Mountain Elder leaned forward slightly and took a few more glances. He realized that this young lady was actually very good-looking. Especially, even though she was so young, she actually had an aura that no one dared to underestimate. He turned around and looked at his grandson. The two of them seemed to be about the same age. A smile instantly appeared on the Mountain Elder's face, and he looked like a kind and amiable old man. "Your name is Gu Yundong, right?" "Yes." Gu Yundong's eyebrows twitched. This man looked like an old fox who was scheming against everything. "How old are you?" 15. "Are you engaged?" Gu Yundong was speechless. She glanced at the student standing behind the Mountain Elder and said with a smile, "Grandpa Mountain Elder, it's not good to ask a girl about her engagement in front of outsiders. I'll be shy." The Mountain Elder was stunned. He turned his head and was about to ask the gossipy students to leave quickly when he heard Gu Yundong say, "I'm engaged." Before the Mountain Elder could open his mouth, he froze. "Wait, you just said that you would be shy, but now you're saying that you're engaged. Can your words and actions match?" The Mountain Elder didn't want to speak. He took 2 more sips of water before stopping. Meanwhile, Gu Dajiang had already walked quickly to the lecture hall. Tianhai Academy was huge, and there were several lecture halls. Coincidentally, it was the time for the students to rest after class. However, there were still many people sitting in the classroom and studying quietly. There was not much noise in the entire classroom. Gu Dajiang skipped such lecture halls. He was looking for places where there weren't many people in the classroom, and the students gathered in groups of 2 or 3 to talk or discuss. It was not until he found the 3rd room that his eyes lit up and he strode in. Zhuo Guang, who was following behind, looked up. Oh, this man had chosen the most difficult place. He was finished. He immediately leaned against the wall outside the lecture hall and waited to watch the commotion. Chapter 605, Stallion Painting. There were always students in every academy who didn't love to study but had no choice but to come to class. For example, the lecture hall that Gu Dajiang had entered. Seeing a stranger, the students in the lecture hall looked up in surprise and frowned at him. Gu Dajiang took out the paper he had just taken from Gu Yundong from his sleeve and carefully unfolded the paper. Then, he raised it for everyone to see. The students in the lecture hall were stunned, but they still subconsciously looked at the picture. There were 2 horses drawn on the map. 2 horses that were running wildly and full of fighting spirit. The horses were drawn vividly. Not only were they realistic, but they also gave off the feeling of metal and war. One could not help but feel excited when they saw them. It was just like how men nowadays treat cars as their wives. Those days, horses were men's favorite, even for these students who studied in school all day and occasionally learned how to ride horses and shoot arrows. The moment they saw the picture of the horses, their gaze was fixed on it. 2 people could not help but come forward. When the others saw this, regardless of whether they were interested or not, they would follow. This was enough for Gu Dajiang. "Your picture of horses looks pretty good. Did you draw it?" someone asked. Gu Dajiang shook his head. "It was drawn by a skilled artist." "Skilled artist?" A student sneered. To say that the artist was skilled in the Tianhai Academy, which was filled with talents. Was he joking? However, very quickly, someone realized that this painting was really different. The layman only looked at the surface. As long as it was good-looking, it was fine. The expert looked at the technique. Gradually, some students came closer to look at the composition of the horses, and some students who liked painting and calligraphy slowly became excited. This is a charcoal painting that has become popular recently, but this is the first time I've seen such a delicate and smooth painting. Look at these lines. They're fine and powerful, and they're dyed layer by layer from shallow to deep. Moreover, the effect of light and dark has a strong conflict, making the two horses look instantly tall and mighty, making people feel a terrifying pressure. It's as if the horses are galloping towards you, and they're about to appear. Good, good, this is simply too wonderful. People without skills can't draw such a painting at all. That's right. This painting is the best charcoal painting I've ever seen. Is that so? There were also students who were not very talented in painting. Hearing this, they asked, better than our academy's Master Xia? Although Master Xia has very high attainments in painting and calligraphy, he has only just begun to study charcoal painting after all. It does feel a little lacking. Last time, I saw Master Xia throwing paper all over the ground. He seemed to be very troubled too. Dajiang remained silent as he watched them discuss. After a while, someone finally came out and asked him, "Brother, you said this was the work by a skilled painter. I wonder where that painter is. Can you introduce him?" Dajiang shook his head. That painter keeps a low profile, so it's not convenient to meet them. However, if everyone present wants to improve your painting skills, there's a way. What is it? Someone immediately said anxiously, "I've drawn many charcoal drawings like this, but it's always not smooth enough. I don't know what's wrong. Tell me, how can I improve it?" There were also people who expressed their doubts. "Brother, aren't you being too confident? Everyone encounters different problems. You only have one method, and not everyone can use it." Chapter 606, completed. Dajiang placed the painting in his hand on the podium and let the others continue watching. Then, he faced the student who had raised the question and said, "You're right. Everyone encounters different problems. Therefore, if there's a brother who has drawn with charcoal and feels that there's anything he's not satisfied with, and he needs someone to help him take a look, he can bring the painting over. I'll personally show it to that artist." Everyone was stunned. Dajiang continued, "After the artist finishes reading it, they will naturally write down what you should pay attention to. Everyone here is a learned person. I believe that as long as you're given some pointers, you will definitely be enlightened. Your painting skills will more or less improve." Everyone looked at each other. That was indeed the case. Whether it was learning or painting, there were times when they lacked a little enlightenment. They were very tempted, so Dajiang continued, "If everyone is interested, you can give the painting to me now. I'm Gu Zicheng, about to become a student of Tianhai Academy. I won't destroy my future and deceive everyone. I promise to return the painting before school ends today. Of course, if everyone doesn't believe me, you can ask student Zhuo Guang, who is standing at the door." Zhuo Guang, who was leaning against the door listening to the commotion and marveling at Dajiang's wit, was tempted to see the painting with his own eyes. He was so shocked that he stood up straight. Two students immediately came out of the lecture hall. Seeing that he was really there, they immediately surrounded him and asked him if it was true. Zhuo Guang was speechless. How did he become Dajiang's guarantor? No, he thought that his whereabouts were very secretive. How did Dajiang know that he was outside? Furthermore, he even knows my name? Is Dajiang that smart? Because he was too shocked, Zhuo Guang did not have time to refute at all. He only nodded subconsciously. Zhuo Guang was relatively close to the mountain elder's grandson, Qi Ting. Most of the students recognized him. With him as a witness, Dajiang's words became much more believable. Therefore, someone quickly took out their painting and handed it to Dajiang. With the first one, there would be a second one. This kind of thing that was helpful to their painting skills was rare. Even students who did not have a deep understanding of painting would not let go of such an opportunity. When Dajiang saw this, he hurriedly said, "The artist only has limited time, so they can only accept 20 paintings. It's not appropriate to accept too many." "Only 20 paintings?" As soon as he said this, the other students who were still hesitating did not dare to delay anymore and quickly opened their cases. There were also paintings left at home or in the schoolhouse. It would definitely be too late to get them now. So someone went to the next lecture hall and told his close classmates about it. Gradually, the students from the other lecture halls came over. In just a short while, the 20 works requested by Mountain Elder Qi had been collected. Gu Dajiang was a man of his word. He decisively stopped when he received 20 paintings. He gathered the paintings and left. Some students wanted him to make an exception, but Gu Dajiang shook his head and said solemnly, "Painting and calligraphy should be slowly appreciated. If there are too many of them and the artist doesn't have much time, won't they be irresponsible if they look at them one by one quickly? Then they will disappoint everyone's trust." He was right. Although everyone was disappointed, they could only nod and let Gu Dajiang leave. They only repeatedly reminded him, "You have to bring the paintings back before school ends." "Don't worry." Gu Dajiang nodded solemnly. Chapter 607, You Gave It to Him? Zhuo Guang, who was outside the door, calculated that only half of the time had passed. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? Was Gu Dajiang the devil? No wonder Master Qin, who made Shi Ting hate him so much, would personally introduce him to Mountain Elder Qi. Zhuo Guang shook his head and hurriedly ran towards the Fate Hut. He ran fast, and when he arrived, he was panting and covered in sweat. The student who was waiting for him at the door was a little surprised. "Why are you back so quickly? How is it? Can Gu Zicheng do it?" Zhuo Guang took 2 deep breaths before swallowing his dry throat and nodding. "He did it. He's on his way back now." That person was stunned and exclaimed, "He did it? In such a short period of time?" Everyone in the Fate Hut heard it. Mountain Elder Qi immediately let Zhuo Guang in. Qi Ting couldn't wait. "How did he do it? Tell me." It was Mountain Elder Qi who poured him a glass of water first and let him drink it. "Take your time." After he went to the lecture hall, he took out a painting. Zhuo Guang recounted everything that Gu Dajiang had done along the way. He spoke vividly and occasionally with body language. Perhaps because he was too shocked by Gu Dajiang's actions, he couldn't help but exaggerate. Hence, Gu Dajiang, who was presented to everyone, was simply like a genius. With just a few words, he could settle the matter that everyone felt was extremely difficult. Qi Ting and the others really didn't expect him to have such a move. After hearing this, they couldn't help but fall silent. They had also thought about what they would do if they were in his shoes. Their first thought was to ask them one by one and persuade them. However, this method took time and the success rate was not high. Gu Dajiang took another path. He threw out the bait and waited for them to deliver themselves to him without any effort. Everyone exclaimed. At this moment, they had a whole new level of respect for Gu Dajiang. Only Mountain Elder Qi seemed to be deep in thought. After a while, he looked at Gu Yundong and said with a smile, "So, the thing you secretly gave your father previously was that steed painting?" "Yes." This time, Gu Yundong's answer was very straightforward. "Who drew that picture?" "Qin Wenzheng." As soon as the Mountain Elder finished speaking, he heard Qi Ting say, "Qin Wenzheng drew it? Humph, then I have to see how outstanding it is." After saying that, he looked at Zhuo Guang. "Have you seen it before?" Zhuo Guang looked bitter. "I didn't go in." Gu Yundong actually wanted to proudly announce that she had drawn it, but she could not get a word in. Now that conditions allowed it, painting was her hobby. Naturally, Gu Yundong could not bear to leave it behind. When she was free, she would pick up a pen and paper to write and draw to adjust her mood. She often had the illusion that she was still deep in the apocalypse. It was only when she picked up the charcoal pen that the comfortable feeling seemed real. She had drawn many things, including flowers, trees, stone mills, fruits, and vegetables. She would draw anything she could see. Now, her skills were getting better and better. She had drawn the picture of the horses not long ago. After drawing it, she placed it in her space. Previously, her father had asked her if she had any paintings in the carriage. He wanted to borrow them. Gu Yundong took out the painting on the spot and said that she happened to have it with her, so she handed it to him. As she was thinking, steady footsteps came from outside the door. Chapter 608, the third question. Gu Dajiang returned with the 20-odd paintings. As soon as he entered, he said to Mountain Elder Qi, "I didn't disappoint you. I've already brought back all the paintings." Mountain Elder Qi was speechless. He already knew the process. The completion rate of the matter was far beyond his expectations. He asked Gu Dajiang to put all 20 paintings on the table and looked at them one by one. There was indeed no problem. Finally, Mountain Elder Qi's gaze landed on the horse painting in Gu Dajiang's hand. The others did the same, but Mountain Elder Qi didn't say anything, so they could only wait. However, Mountain Elder Qi quickly retracted his gaze and asked him curiously, "You used this painting to attract other students. If you didn't have this painting on hand, how could you take back these 20 paintings?" Gu Dajiang said, "Then I can only ask other students for them. There are some students in the academy who don't have good family backgrounds. They sell paintings or help others write letters to support themselves financially. There should be more than one who wants to reduce the burden. As long as I find one, that student will definitely be able to help me find the other 19. Although there were students in the academy who spent money like water and cared about their reputation despite their family's difficulties, there were definitely students who wanted to reduce their family's burden and rely on themselves. Naturally, there were also such students who formed groups. Gu Dajiang actually empathized with such people, so he could tell at a glance. As long as he secretly negotiated with them, he believed that it wouldn't be long before he could complete the mission. The mountain elder raised his eyebrows. It made sense. What if you're penniless and don't have the ability to buy their paintings? Gu Dajiang wasn't afraid. Then I'd tell them that I know someone who will buy their paintings and I can still take back these 20 paintings. Even if these students didn't believe him, it was fine. There was still Zhuo Guang, right? This guy could still vouch for him. Mountain Elder Qi laughed out loud and looked at Gu Dajiang with even more satisfaction. As expected of someone introduced by Qin Wenjing. His thoughts were novel and not pedantic. He was flexible and would not pretend to be noble. Very good. It was the same for the first question. He knew to avoid the difficult matter and find a breakthrough elsewhere. He would not be so stubborn as to think of an answer. If he offended his wife and daughter, he would end up in a situation where his family was at odds. Still. After the mountain elder finished laughing, a malicious expression suddenly appeared on his face. Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. "Grandpa Mountain Elder, you should practice your facial management. In the past, when you were an official, did you often suffer because others saw your expression? Was that why you resigned early and came back to teach?" The mountain elder said, "Regarding the second question, you have indeed passed. However, although you have brought back these paintings, you have also promised those students that before the school ends, you will get the artist to point out the shortcomings in the paintings. Now that it's almost noon, it's too late for you to give the paintings to the artist before taking them back. Besides, don't forget that I still have a third question waiting for you." He knocked on the table with a smile and glanced at the paintings on the table. "Even if it's an expedient, you can't go back on your word to others. If you enter school in the future, you won't have the face to talk to these classmates, right?" Mountain Elder Qi felt that the artist Gu Dajiang was talking about was most likely Qin Wenjing. Unless Qin Wenjing was in the prefectural city, he would never be able to bring the paintings back to the academy before the school ended. But Qin Wenjing was in Fengkai County. Chapter 609, Should I remind Gu Yundong? Gu Dajiang wasn't nervous. "It's indeed almost noon. Please give me the third question." The mountain elder was stunned. Did she not understand what he said just now? That shouldn't be the case. Gu Dajiang was such a smart person. It was only when he saw Gu Yundong stand up and carry the 20 paintings back that he was slightly stunned and came to a realization. That's right, Gu Dajiang still had his sharp-tongued daughter. Gu Dajiang could pass the third test in peace while his daughter took the paintings away and get help. Alright, then I'll talk about the third one. Mountain Elder Qi said, "The third one isn't difficult. You have to go to a lecture hall that's in the middle of a lesson. After you're done listening, write an essay for me. The third was the true test of Gu Dajiang's knowledge. It was really not difficult in a way. Most people who had read books knew how to write an article. Moreover, this article did not have any restrictions. You could cut in from any angle and do whatever you wanted. However, it was difficult in another way. After all, the person reviewing the article was Mountain Elder Qi. As the Mountain Elder of an academy and an official for many years, it was said that he had participated in the imperial examination in the past. To Mountain Elder Qi, who had read too many good essays, an essay that was too mediocre and not eye-catching would disappoint him. Furthermore, although Gu Dajiang had read many books and had written some articles in private, no one helped him review them. There was no interaction. It was a weakness. Gu Dajiang felt that this was the true test for him. The Mountain Elder looked at him and frowned slightly. He asked, "Why? Is there a problem?" "No." He shook his head and said, "It's just that my wife and daughter ate breakfast early. When I finish writing the essay after class, it would be past noon. I don't want them to wait with me on an empty stomach." Mountain Elder Qi nodded, but he thought to himself that Gu Dajiang was probably finding an excuse for his daughter to leave the academy with the paintings, right? However, he did not want to do as Gu Dajiang wished. "It doesn't matter. The academy has a canteen. I'll get someone to bring you some food. The weather is hot now. It's inconvenient for them to go out in the afternoon. You don't want them to be tired, right?" "In that case, thank you, Mountain Elder." Gu Dajiang bowed deeply. "Then I'll go to the lecture hall." The Mountain Elder was stunned. He agreed just like that. Shouldn't he persevere a little? He suddenly felt like he was punching cotton. He clearly had a bad idea in his heart, but the other party did not seem to take the blow as he had imagined. It was simply too bad. Gu Dajiang turned around and left. When Qi Ting saw this, he thought for a moment and quickly approached a student beside him. "Bring him to the Enlightenment lecture hall." The difficulty had increased. He wanted to see how Gu Dajiang would pass. The Tianhai Academy was also divided into several parts. The Enlightenment lecture hall was filled with young children, so the content of the teacher's lectures was naturally not deep. Gu Dajiang could obtain very little knowledge. Let's see how good an article he can write this time. The student nodded and quickly followed. Mountain Elder Qi saw it but did not stop him. In the face of a challenge, he would always encounter all kinds of accidents. It was also a good opportunity for Mountain Elder Qi to see how he could adapt to the situation. So he tacitly agreed. What he cared about now was something else. It had been so long. Why didn't the Gu family's girls say that she was leaving? Should he remind her that time was tight? Chapter 610. Gu Yundong's painting. Mountain Elder Qi cleared his throat, glanced at Gu Yundong, and said, "Miss Gu, the school ends at 1700 hours in the Tianhai Academy." His words were very obscure. Gu Yundong nodded. "Yes. Before I came here, my father had also asked around. School is a little late in the summer, and it will be an hour earlier in the winter." The Mountain Elder was speechless. Why didn't she understand? Where did her intelligence go? Or was he being too vague? He coughed lightly and gave up on himself. He said openly, "Miss Gu, time is quite tight. You have to return those paintings before the school ends. Shouldn't you make some moves?" Qj Ting scoffed. His grandfather was clearly going easy on him. But in the next moment, Gu Yundong nodded. "Grandpa Mountain Elder is right. It's better to return them as soon as possible." After saying that, she sat in front of the table, spread out the drawing paper, and read it carefully and seriously. The Mountain Elder was speechless. Everyone was speechless. "What are you looking at? You don't understand anything about art, and you still act like an unfathomable expert. It doesn't even look like you're pretending, okay?" After reading the first picture, Gu Yundong roughly knew what the other party's focus was, which aspect was very weak, and what he had neglected. There were many points to mention. She looked around and asked Mountain Elder Qi, Grandpa Mountain Elder, can I use a pen? I can, but you, Gu Yundong did not stand on ceremony. Mountain Elder Qi also had charcoal pens. Gu Yundong was more comfortable with this. He took one and started writing on the drawing paper. The Mountain Elder was stunned. He suddenly stood up and walked to her. What are you doing? Gu Yundong looked up and said matter-of-factly, of course I'm pointing out what's lacking and helping this student improve his painting skills. Didn't my father say so? No, what nonsense are you writing? Qi Ting and the others quickly walked forward and said angrily, your father asked you to let the painter who drew the painting of horses point it out, not for you to mess around here. Do you know how much the students of our academy cherish these paintings? How can they let you paint randomly on them? Do you know that you've ruined their hard work? The others nodded one after another, as if they could empathize with someone who did not take their intentions seriously. Miss Gu, your father promised to return the painting before the school ends. We understand that he doesn't want to go back on his word and deceive the students, but we can't let you fool us, right? Miss Gu, if your father really can't do it, it's not a big deal to return the paintings and apologize. That's right. It's too disrespectful to write on someone else's painting so casually. The Mountain Elder frowned and turned his head to glare at his grandson and the other students. All right, what are you all talking about? Miss Gu hasn't said a word and you've already lambasting him. All of you aren't young anymore. What if you scare her? As soon as he spoke, the others immediately lowered their heads and did not dare to make a sound. Weren't they too anxious and afraid that she would destroy someone else's things? They didn't really want to scare her. Gu Yundong was helpless. She unfolded the painting of horses that her father had left behind before he left. I drew this painting. The artist that my father mentioned is me. Mountain Elder Qi? The others. What are you talking about? The wind's too strong. I don't think I heard you properly. Chapter 611. Cute students. The Mountain Elder could not help but look at Gu Yundong. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the picture of horses on the table. Then, he continued to look at Gu Yundong and then at the picture of horses. He repeated this several times, but he was still in a daze. The others did the same thing. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. Thinking about it, it made sense. If it were her, she wouldn't believe it either. After a while, someone finally asked with difficulty, You're not bluffing, right? Gu Yundong simply took out a piece of drawing paper from the side and twirled the charcoal pen in her hand. Then, she placed it on the paper and started drawing. Her movements were very fast. It was obvious that she was familiar with it, as if she had practiced it thousands of times. Not long after, a simple version of Mountain Elder Qi appeared on the paper. It looked very smooth. The picture of horses was really drawn by me. Gu Yundong emphasized it again and said helplessly, so my father did not lie to anyone. Now, can I write on the painting? Everyone was stunned by Gu Yundong's actions. When they heard her question, they subconsciously nodded. Gu Yundong ignored them and lowered her head to look at the second painting. After she finished writing her opinion, a student suddenly jumped in front of Gu Yundong. His face was red and he said excitedly, You actually drew the picture of horses. Miss Gu, your drawing skills are too good. Actually, I'm very interested in charcoal drawing. I have many works in my dormitory. Can you help me take a look? Please visit Sidestries. C0M, maybe Y0 you will Eng0 Y the captivating SH0 RTST0 rise. And me. I've been thinking about it for days. Miss, please wait a moment. I'll go to the schoolhouse to get the painting. Gu Yundong raised her head and looked at these people in surprise. These days, most of the students were aloof, especially in terms of learning. They might not look down on women, but they were definitely unwilling to consult a girl who was younger than them. It would make them feel embarrassed. Qin Wenzheng was an exception. From his attitude towards his wife, it could be seen that he respected women and would not underestimate them. But Gu Yundong suddenly felt that it was the right choice for her father to come to Tianhai Academy to study. Of course, Gu Yundong did not mind interacting more with such a group of adorable students who were modestly asking questions and focused on improving their knowledge. However, the mountain elder was unhappy. He coughed lightly and said with a frown, "All right, all right. All of you are squeezing in front of the girl. What's wrong with you? Where are the rules and etiquette you learned? Also, how long have you been in the Fate Hut? It's time for class. Aren't you going back?" Everyone shrunk their necks from the scolding. They wanted to say something, but they did not dare to. In the end, they could only turn their heads to look at Qi Ting. Qi Ting himself wanted to squeeze forward, but unfortunately, he was young and short. He was actually blocked behind. At this moment, he was depressed. Therefore, he completely ignored the gazes of the others. The mountain elder glared at everyone again. Only then did these people lower their heads and leave dejectedly. Qi Ting did not leave. The mountain elder frowned and looked at him majestically. "Why? Are you still not leaving?" "Grandfather, there are important guests at home. As the host, how can I not stay and entertain them?" Qi Ting said righteously. "Moreover, it's almost noon. I'll go to the canteen to get food for them." With that, he ran to the reception hall to get the food box and left. As soon as he left, Mountain Elder Qi pursed his lips. He immediately moved a chair and sat beside Gu Yundong calmly. Chapter 612, I'm guiding you Gu Yundong. Where were the rules and etiquette? The mountain elder said in all seriousness, "I'll just sit at the side. You do your thing and I'll watch mine. Don't worry, I won't make a sound to disturb you." Gu Yundong's hand that was holding the charcoal pen was a little stiff. "Mountain Elder Qi, you've been an official for many years and have an imposing aura. You're already disturbing me by sitting beside me, okay? Hurry up. You have a total of 20 paintings." Mountain Elder Qi still had a serious expression. "I'll take the opportunity to see how your handwriting is and give you some pointers." Gu Yundong was speechless. This was the first time she had seen someone stealing skills from others in such a refreshing and refined manner. "Why? Do you think I can't guide you?" Seeing that she did not move for a long time, Mountain Elder Qi became a little anxious. He immediately said with a straight face, "Do you know how many people in Tianhai Academy want to receive half a word of advice from me?" Gu Yundong smiled. "No, it's my honor to have the Mountain Elder's guidance." "Yes." Mountain Elder Qi nodded in satisfaction. Gu Yundong secretly heaved a sigh of relief and lowered her head to look at the paintings. Her speed was not considered fast, but her serious and responsible attitude made Mountain Elder Qi nod repeatedly. After reviewing one, Gu Yundong carefully placed it aside. Then, Mountain Elder Qi took it over as if he was really looking at her handwriting. As he read, he said, "Your handwriting is not bad, but the style is a little strange." That was all he said. Then he began to focus on the painting and read Gu Yundong's comments. Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Forget it, as long as he was happy. She continued to flip through the next painting. Just as she was about to write, hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment when the mountain elder beside her suddenly stood up. He was a few steps away from the desk, as if it had been someone else who was sitting at the side and looking at the painting. He had just taken 2 steps when Qi Ting came in with a lunchbox. The mountain elder nodded at him. "All right, since the food has been brought back, bring Madame Gu and second Miss Gu to the reception hall to eat first. Remember to entertain them well." Qi Ting's hand, which was about to put down the lunchbox, paused. "Me? Of course. Aren't you the master?" Qi Ting glanced at little Yunka and Madame Yang, who were playing with the puzzle pieces not far away. This puzzle was given to them by Mountain Elder Qi. It was a good toy for children. He glanced at Mountain Elder Qi and Gu Yundong, who did not seem to intend to eat now. He could only accept his fate and call the 2 of them to the reception hall at the back. The little girl looked at Gu Yundong, who nodded. Go ahead. Eldest sister will wait for father to come back before having lunch. You and mother can go eat first. She was indeed not hungry. It was not time for lunch yet. But Gu Yunka was different. The young lady did not eat much in the morning. Usually, when she was at home, they would prepare some snacks or fruits. When she was hungry, she could fill her stomach. However, she was coming to Tianhai Academy today. The young lady had heard from her brother that she could not eat casually in school, so she did not bring any snacks. In fact, she was already a little hungry. With Gu Yundong's approval, she put down the puzzle and obediently held Madame Yang's hand as she followed behind Qi Ting. Gu Yundong continued to examine the paintings on the table. Qi Ting led them to wash their hands first. Madame Yang and Gu Yunka were quiet. After washing their hands, Madame Yang wiped her hands with a handkerchief. Qi Ting watched from the side. He was about to say that a brat was a brat, who needed someone else to wipe her hands. Who knew that in the next moment, his eyes suddenly widened. Chapter 613, Are You a Bear? Qi Ting looked at Madame Yang in a daze. Seeing that her gaze was honest and not at all ashamed of being seen by others when she reached out to let her daughter wash her hands, he finally realized that something was wrong. When the two of them walked to the dining table and Qi Ting took out the food from the food box, he heard Madame Yang's eyes suddenly light up. He quietly said to Gu Yunka, There are dumplings. They're my favorite food. Qi Ting finally confirmed his thoughts. This Madame Yang didn't seem to be a normal person. Previously, he had not noticed Madame Yang. It should be said that once Gu Dajiang entered, Madame Yang and Gu Yundong's presence were extremely low, except for Gu Yunka, who was in his arms and making faces at him. It was only after Gu Yundong and his grandfather had fought back and forth for 2 rounds that he felt that Gu Yundong was actually a lady who hid her strength. But Madame Yang was very quiet. Even when she was playing puzzles with Gu Yunka, she did not make a sound. Therefore, it was only now that he finally realized that Madame Yang was unusual. However, Qi Ting didn't understand. Even though he had read for so many years and wasn't pedantic, he couldn't understand Gu Dajiang's actions. Towards his wife, who might not be smart, Gu Dajiang was able to stay by her side. This meant that he valued relationships and was a responsible man. Qi Ting admired him. However, when he was out and at such an important and rigorous time in his studies, it was fine if he brought along a capable daughter. However, if he brought along a wife who couldn't help at all and didn't even understand what they were talking about or even might drag him down, Qi Ting felt that Gu Dajiang was abnormal. At this moment, he was a little regretful. Wasn't it too much to deliberately arrange for him to be in the Enlightenment lecture hall? Qi Ting was still thinking. When he came back to his senses, he realized that the adult and child opposite him had already eaten more than half of it. He quickly lowered his head to eat. After eating, he still had to ask Gu Yundong about the drawings. He wanted to know who Gu Yundong had learned how to draw. Was it Qin Wenjing? However, halfway through his meal, he suddenly felt a strong gaze that made him unable to sit still. Qi Ting suddenly looked up and met Gu Yunk's big, watery eyes. He was stunned. What's wrong? Can't eat anymore? The little girl shook her head, but she still stared at him, on the small plate beside him. Qi Ting followed her gaze. He had specially taken out this small plate and placed it at the side to contain the food he didn't want to eat. Now that he was being stared at by a little girl, Qi Ting inexplicably felt flustered. He glared at the little girl. What are you looking at? You're picky. Gu Yunka pointed at the small plate in front of him and said, You don't eat vegetables, you only eat meat. What's wrong with not eating vegetables? He liked to eat meat. The young lady was young, but she had a lot of control. Qi Ting stuffed a piece of meat into his mouth in front of her. The little girl frowned. Why? The vegetables are so delicious. Listen, they're crispy when you bite them. She even demonstrated as she ate with relish. Qi Ting looked at her little mouth moving and actually felt that he was a little greedy, as if the vegetables in her mouth were especially delicious. Stop, stop, stop. Delicious my ass. I'm not a rabbit. I don't eat grass. Gu Yunke blinked. Are you a bear? Chapter 6:14. This person has evil intentions. What bear? Qi Ting suddenly stood up. Are you cursing me? Gu Yunke looked confused. No, I heard from Brother Ah Mao that bears only eat meat. Madame Yang nodded and testified. I heard it too. Qi Ting glared at the mother and daughter. No, he retracted his previous thoughts. Gu Dajiang was not simple at all. Other than Gu Yundong, who hid his strength well, these two were also extremely lethal. They silently scolded him, but he could not blame them. Look at the expressions on their faces. It was as if he had done something wrong. Gu Yunke saw that he seemed to be very angry and quickly went to Madame Yang's ear and whispered. Mother, we seem to have said something wrong. Shoo, let's pretend that we didn't make a sound just now. Let's eat and let him think that it's an illusion. Alright, let's pretend that we don't know that he's picky about food. Don't look up and just muddle through. Yes, let's do that. Qi Ting, if you want to whisper, at least lower your voice. I can hear you. I can hear everything you say, alright? However, the two of them had already lowered their heads. Their faces were almost buried in the bowl, not even showing their eyes. Qi Ting was so angry that he laughed. Can you guys pretend any better? But what could he say? Was he really going to argue with a child and a fool? Qi Ting sat on the chair resentfully, having no appetite at all. Seeing that the two of them were still playing with their chopsticks after eating, he almost couldn't help but fall off the chair. However, in the next moment, he could not help but roll his eyes. He suddenly leaned forward and asked softly, Gu Yunke, right? The little girl raised her head. There was still a grain of rice on her tender little face. When Qi Ting saw this, he couldn't help but feel an itch in his hand. He wiped it off with a handkerchief. The little girl was stunned. So he wasn't angry. Fortunately, she was relieved. Hence, she nodded and patted her chest. Yes, my name is Gu Yunke. Can I ask you a few questions? The little girl said generously, ask me. I'll tell you everything I know. That's right. Her brother had taught her this idiom. Qi Ting was instantly amused. So, you know everything? Yes, I know a lot. The little girl was very proud. Although I'm only 4 years old. Is that so? A glint flashed across Qi Ting's eyes. Then tell me, who did your elder sister learn her drawing skills from? Qin Wenzheng? Gu Yunke immediately shrunk her neck. Oh no, she did not know the answer to this question. Moreover, it was about eldest sister. Aunt Ku had said that she could not tell others about eldest sister, especially men. If that happened, eldest sister's reputation would be greatly affected. After thinking for a while, the little girl could only say weakly, Can you change the question? Qi Ting was stunned and pondered for a moment. Perhaps this question was a little difficult for her. Hence, he changed the question. Is your sister very familiar with Qin Wenzheng? He actually wanted to know about Qin Wenzheng. The young lady was unhappy. Why did he keep asking about big sister? He definitely had ill intentions. So she shook her head decisively. I don't know. Qi Ting was impatient. Seeing this, he was a little annoyed. Didn't you say that you know everything? That's right. Gu Yunke looked as if she was telling the truth. Qi Ting said, all right, then tell me, what do you know? Chapter 6:15, Gu Dajiang's article, I know. You have to add oil before you stir fry. You have to scrape the fish scales. The drumstick meat is delicious. Gu Yunke counted her fingers and said one by one, if there's a fire in the pot, you can't pour water. If you eat too much sugar, you'll have cavities. If you soak dry wood ears in water, don't soak them for too long. In the end, she said in a strong voice, also, you can't be picky about food. Humph. Qi Ting gritted his teeth. He suddenly wanted to grab this little girl's pink little face and pinch her flesh to see what else she could say. Controlling his restless hand, Qi Ting snorted coldly. No matter what, it's still food. Other than eating, what else do you know? The young lad's face flushed red. What was wrong with her knowing about food? That was already very impressive. At this moment, applause came from the reception pavilion. They turned around at the same time and saw Mountain Elder Qi standing at the door. His admiring gaze landed on Gu Yunka. Well said. The young lady is so sensible at such a young age. She's much better than certain people. When he mentioned certain people, his gaze landed on Qi Ting with disdain. He paused on the pile of vegetables he picked out. It's shameful to waste. Even a little girl knows the principle. You've been studying for many years, but you've learned nothing. Qi Ting was a little vexed. He should have destroyed that plate of vegetables first. It was all because of this little girl. He looked at Gu Yunka. The young lady had already run to Gu Yundong's side. Eldest sister, I'm done eating. Was the food good? Gu Yundong took out a handkerchief and wiped her mouth. The little girl was instantly satisfied and nodded vigorously. It's delicious. I ate so much. Gu Yundong patted her head and held her hand as they walked back into the reception pavilion. When she passed by Qi Ting, she turned her head and glanced at him. Although she didn't say anything, the blatant contempt in her eyes was especially conspicuous. Qi Ting almost fainted from anger. Wasn't it just discriminating against him for being picky? He would eat for them to see. He angrily picked up the plate and poured the vegetables into his mouth. He took a few bites and swallowed them. Gu Yunka looked at him worriedly. Why did he eat vegetables as if they were poison? The little girl couldn't understand. Qi Ting went out after eating. Unexpectedly, Gu Dajiang returned just as he walked out. Qi Ting turned around again. He wanted to see what good article Gu Dajiang could write after his class. When the mountain elder saw him, he hurriedly called him over to eat, telling Gu Dajiang that he could write after eating. Gu Dajiang didn't stand on ceremony. He was indeed hungry. However, he ate quite fast. After all, he did have some ideas in his mind at the moment. It was better to write them down as soon as possible. Therefore, after he hurriedly finished eating, he immediately went to the desk and began to write. Qi Ting wanted to take a look, but he was afraid of affecting him. After all, when he was writing an article, he hated being disturbed the most. Hence, he endured it and waited for Gu Dajiang to finish writing before eagerly taking it. But Mountain Elder Qi was one step ahead of him and picked up the article first. Qi Ting was speechless. This was really his biological grandfather. As if he did not see Qi Ting, the mountain elder sat in his seat and poured himself a cup of tea. Then, he began to savor it leisurely. After reading 2 sentences, he suddenly paused and looked up at Gu Dajiang in surprise. You. Chapter 6:16. One less person. Mountain Elder Qi confirmed again that he was not seeing things. He still asked in disbelief, You went to class and became a teacher? Gu Dajiang was indeed brought to the Enlightenment Lecture Hall. He was tall and not young. The table in the Enlightenment Lecture Hall was a little low. Gu Dajiang sat at the back, making the other students curious. The teacher was also very helpless, but knowing that this was the mountain elder's request, he could only pretend not to see Gu Dajiang and continue his class. However, halfway through the lecture, the teacher suddenly had an uncomfortable feeling in his stomach. He could only temporarily assign the students the task of reading books and leave the lecture hall. As soon as he left, the children, who were still young and naughty, immediately started buzzing. There were also a few mischievous children who ran to Gu Dajiang's side and surrounded him to ask questions. Gu Dajiang saw that this wouldn't do. Coincidentally, he knew the knowledge of the preparation class. Furthermore, he realized that this teacher's lectures were a little boring. Perhaps it was fine to teach older students, but it was quite tortuous for these children who couldn't sit still. Gu Dajiang happened to be a very patient person with children. Whether it was Gu Yundong or Gu Yunshu, he had taught them at home. He was experienced. Moreover, ever since Yunshu went to school, he would come back every day and talk about the school and the interesting things he did with Yuanji. Gu Dajiang gradually figured out the attitude of students at this age. Therefore, facing these students who were about the same age as his son, Gu Dajiang lectured like a storyteller. Soon, people listened and memorized the knowledge in the books. In the article that Gu Dajiang was writing, he was elaborating on the point of view of teaching according to one's aptitude. The mountain elder's eyes lit up as he nodded repeatedly. Good, well written. The novelty of the angle, the novelty of the argument. The article proved his point in several ways. Not only did the article have a deeper meaning, but he also knew very well that this article was for him, the mountain elder, to read. What did the mountain elder care about? Of course, it was the academy's teaching. This article was simply to the mountain elder's liking. Mountain elder Qi laughed out loud after reading it. He stood up and patted Gu Dajiang's shoulder. You completed all 3 questions, and you completed them very well. Gu Dajiang, welcome to the Tianhai Academy. From tomorrow onwards, you can come to the academy to study. Gu Dajiang's eyes lit up as he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Mountain Elder. Mountain Elder Qi was very happy. Qin Wenzheng had indeed introduced him to a good student. Even if Gu Dajiang did not obtain a good ranking in the imperial examination in the future, he was destined to be a talent. He put away the article and walked to the side to write a letter for him. When you come tomorrow, bring this post to supervisor He. He will arrange everything. Thank you, Mountain Elder. Gu Dajiang received it cautiously, feeling delighted. As for these 20 paintings, just leave them here for now. I'll get someone to return them to those students before school ends. Yes, Gu Dajiang naturally agreed. When he looked up, he saw that Mountain Elder Qi looked a little tired. He knew that the man had been busy for half a day, so he immediately bade him farewell. The Mountain Elder nodded and asked Qi Ting to send him out of the academy. Although Qi Ting was choked by the Gu family several times, he admired them at the same time and did not refuse. Moreover, as he walked towards the entrance, he explained some things about the academy to him. Gu Dajiang was grateful. Qi Ting was a little smug, and his pace could not help but slow down. Who knew that even so, when he turned around by chance, he still realized that someone was missing behind him. Chapter 617, Don't Be Strange. Qi Ting was dumbfounded. Wasn't there only one road here? How could someone get lost after taking a turn? Gu Dajiang also realized that his daughter was missing. He and Qi Ting looked at each other. Just as he was about to turn around and look for her, he heard a familiar voice coming from the corner. They went back and saw Gu Yundong standing there talking to someone. Sir, how much have you stuck? Just as he turned around, Qi Ting happened to hear this. He looked at the old man standing opposite Gu Yundong. Judging from his attire, he should be working in Tianhai Academy. Then, he looked at the net and bamboo pole in his hand. He immediately understood that this guy was specially hired by the academy to get rid of the cicadas in the summer. In the summer, cicadas chirped non-stop. There were often students who were so annoyed that they could not calm down to study. Actually, this was not a big deal. If the students could not even overcome this small noise, how could they participate in the imperial examination in the future? However, there were many rich young masters in the academy. They did not want to hear the sound of cicadas. They could not study in such a noisy environment. Therefore, they found someone to capture these cicadas. The mountain elder did not care. As long as the people who entered the academy were clean and there were no more than 5 of them, they could catch the cicadas if they wanted to. Without the chirping of the cicadas, he could also take a comfortable afternoon nap. At this moment, Yundong was talking to the old man. The net in the old man's hand was heavy. When he heard this, he chuckled and said, "I've stuck quite a lot. Why are you interested in them? Can you let me take a look?" Yundong wanted to reach out to take it. The old man quickly stepped back. "Miss, don't. They're dark and scary and all squeezed together. I'm not afraid of that." Yundong did not force him. She retracted her hand and said, "I want to buy this net of cicadas. I wonder if it's possible." This time, not only was the old man shocked, but even Qi Ting was shocked. He looked at the girl in front of him who was 3 years older than him and did not know what to say. She bought a bag of cicadas out of the blue. Was there something wrong with her brain? The old man took a while to react. "Miss, are you really going to buy this?" "Yes." "How much?" The old man was stunned for a moment before he quickly shook his head. "No money, no money. If Miss wants it, feel free to take it." What kind of hobby was this? That won't do. You worked hard for half a day. Yundong took out 50 copper coins and gave it to him. "Besides, you have to give me this net." Yundong paid and took the cicadas before calling the others to leave. Only the old man held the money in his hand and was dumbfounded. He had just earned 50 copper coins. After walking for a long time, Dajiang asked her curiously, "Yundong, why did you buy the cicadas?" "I'm going to cook them." Cicadas were very delicious. The meat in the middle was simply delicious. Just thinking about it made her crave it, but no one seemed to eat it here. Qi Ting almost fell to the ground after hearing this. It took him a while to calm down. He pointed at the net and said, You eat this worm?" Yundong glanced at him from the corner of her eye. How ignorant. Her "you really haven't seen the world" look almost made Qi Ting curse. On the other hand, Yunka curiously reached out to poke the net. "Eldest sister, is this delicious?" After receiving Yundong's affirmative nodding, the young lattice eyes lit up and she swallowed hard. Chapter 618. Poor child. If Big Sis said that something was delicious, it would definitely be especially delicious. Yunka thought of the fried chicken wings, the soft cake, and the sweet and fragrant double-skinned milk. She could not wait. Although Madame Yang did not say anything, she could not help but speed up. Qi Ting was speechless. What was going on with this family? Eating a worm was like eating a delicacy. He couldn't bear to look at them. He simply couldn't bear to look at them. He shook his head. Out of sight, out of mind. He strode forward and led the way. But as they walked, they slowed down. After a while Dajiang and Yundong were talking, he quietly walked to Yang's side. The little girl was in Madame Yang's arms and felt a little strange when she saw him retreat to her side. Qi Ting asked her softly, "Are you really going to eat that thing?" Big Sis said it's delicious. But those are insects. How can insects be eaten? Isn't it disgusting? Qi Ting felt extremely disgusted just thinking about it. The little girl frowned and was very dissatisfied. "It is edible. When I was fleeing for life, I ate everything, including soil." "You're picky." Qi Ting was very indignant at her accusation. Even if he wasn't picky about food, he wouldn't eat soil, right? Wait. He looked at Yunka. "Did you escape here?" He really did not know about this. Qin Wenzhang's letter had not mentioned it. Yunka nodded. "When I fled, I was so scared. I had nothing to eat or drink." Qi Ting immediately stopped talking. Although he had not personally experienced that disaster, he had heard a lot. Last year, when he walked on the streets, he could see many emaciated refugees in ragged clothes. The desire in their eyes could scare him. Thinking about how this chubby little girl in front of him was only 4 years old, she probably couldn't even walk steadily last year. No wonder she wasn't picky about anything now. As long as it was edible, it didn't matter if it was insects or grass. It could be seen that she had suffered a lot. Qi Ting touched her little head with sympathy. The little girl blinked. What was going on? Qi Ting sighed and suddenly turned around to run. Gu Yunke was speechless. Did she say anything just now? Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong turned around when they heard the commotion behind them. They were confused. However, forget it. Even without Qi Ting, they could still find a way out. The family of four quickly walked out of the academy's door and stood in front of the two stone walls engraved with people's names. Gu Dajiang felt completely different now. From now on, he would be a student of this academy. When he saw these names, he felt honored. Shui Rong led the carriage over. Gu Yundong was about to walk forward when he heard a wheezing sound behind him. The few of them turned around and saw that Qi Ting, who had suddenly left, had returned. He seemed to be running too fast. At this moment, his head was covered in sweat, and the student robe on his body was crooked. He looked a little disheveled. Qi Ting seemed to be carrying something in his arms. He ran forward and immediately stuffed it into Gu Yunke's arms. The little girl looked down. Qi Ting coughed lightly. All right, this is for you. This is canned food. There's only one restaurant in our prefectural city where you can buy it. The taste elsewhere is not authentic. It's very rare. Take it back and eat it slowly. He wanted to say that she shouldn't eat the cicadas, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. Gu Yunke looked at the canned food in her arms and then looked up at him. Chapter 619, Buying a House in the Prefectural City. After a while, Gu Yunke got off Madame Yang's arms and got into the carriage with the canned food. Qi Ting looked at the little girl's hurried pace and felt a little upset. Why didn't you even thank me? This is the only can I have. You're heartless. Gu Yunke had already let Shui Rong help her up the carriage. She took out 2 cans from the cabinet inside and was carried down by Shui Rong. She ran back to Qi Ting and handed him the cans. Here. Qi Ting looked at the 2 cans in his hand in a daze and heard the little girl's crisp voice. I have a lot of cans. If you want them, come and buy them in the future. These 2 cans are for you. You'll have to pay in the future. After giving her instructions carefully, she waved her hand. I'm leaving. Goodbye. The young lady ran back and was helped into the carriage by Shui Rong. After the carriage started moving again and gradually left without a trace, Qi Ting lowered his eyes and looked at the 2 bottles of canned food in his arms. He muttered, I already said that the other places are not authentic. Even if there are a lot of cans, they won't be delicious. Before he could finish speaking, he turned around and happened to see the word Gu engraved at the bottom of the bottle. Gu. Qi Ting was stunned. Yes, wasn't Gu Dajiang's surname Gu? No, it couldn't be, right? At this moment, the little girl was also holding the can in her arms. She felt that Qi Ting was a strange person. One moment, he looked like a good person, and the next moment, he looked like a bad person. It was too complicated. After thinking for a while, she gave up and went to grab the cicadas in Gu Yundong's hand. Gu Yundong let her be and turned to talk to Shui Rong. Have you found a broker? I found one. They're in the alley ahead not far. Gu Yundong had thought about it. If her father wanted to study here, her mother would probably have to accompany him. Gu Dajiang was not suitable to live in the academy's dormitory. It was necessary to buy a house nearby. Firstly, it was for his father to stay. Secondly, she would have a place to rest in the prefectural city. Therefore, before their family entered the academy to meet Mountain Elder Qi, Gu Yundong had asked Shui Rong to look for a nearby broker. Not long after, the carriage stopped at the entrance of an alley. Indeed, a middle-aged man with a fan stood by the road. When he saw Shui Rong, he immediately retracted his fan and hurriedly welcomed him with a smile. It's Master Gu, right? He stood beside the carriage and personally helped Gu Dajiang down. He smiled and said, Brother Shui told me that Master Gu is about to study at Tianhai Academy. Congratulations, Master Gu. This was the first person to congratulate him after leaving the academy. Although Gu Dajiang didn't show it on his face, his heart was really delighted. As expected of a broker. He was too eloquent. Gu Yundong also got out of the carriage. On such a hot day, she did not let Madame Yang and Gu Yunke cause trouble. She directly asked Shui Rong to send them back first. It was enough to have her and her father to look for a house. After the carriage left, the broker began to introduce, this place is close to the academy, so there must be a shortage of houses. Many people are unwilling to sell, so they rented the houses to those students. Little brother Shui told me about Master Gus' request. I have 3 good ones on hand. I'll take you to see the house in front first. This way, please. Perhaps because it was close to Tianhai Academy, there were many houses here and it was quite lively. However, compared to the bustling city, it was much quieter. Chapter 620, Seducing Her Father. The first house the broker brought them to was a courtyard that was slightly larger than Aunt Kes' house. This place was the closest to the academy, and it was also the most suitable place for scholars to live. Because it was quiet, there were not many shops around. It was said that the few families next to it were all students of the Tianhai Academy. They often discussed knowledge together, and the learning atmosphere was rich. Most importantly, there were no random people coming and going. It was safe. Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong went in to take a look. The house was indeed quite good. Although it was only one courtyard, it was enough. However, it was empty. There was no furniture at all. If they bought it, they would probably have to buy something new. The broker introduced as he walked, this house is still considered new. The original owner just moved out yesterday. If you had come 2 days earlier, I'm afraid they wouldn't have been able to vacate it. As he spoke, he checked their reactions. Gu Yundong did not say anything, and Gu Dajiang did not show any expression. After looking around, the 3 of them came out. The broker led them to the second house. The second house was a little further away, but the road outside the gate was very wide. It was not a problem for 2 carriages to travel side by side. There were some grocery stores around that sold daily stuff. They were not big, but they were very convenient and not noisy. When Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong reached the door, they liked this environment. Moreover, this house seemed to be new. It should have been renovated not long ago. The broker took the key and opened the door. Gu Yundong was about to walk forward when he saw the neighbor's door open and a woman walk out. She was slightly stunned when she saw Gu Yundong and his daughter standing at the door. The broker was already calling them over. Master Gu, Miss Gu, come in and take a look. Gu Yundong and his father entered the main gate and saw a persimmon tree planted in the courtyard. The tree was probably quite old and its branches had already reached the next door. It looked rather comfortable. The courtyard was quite big. Although there was no furniture, there were many rooms, and the study, kitchen, and guest rooms were clearly divided. The broker brought them around, but he still could not see any satisfaction or dissatisfaction on their faces. He immediately sighed inwardly. This courtyard was the best among the 3 families. The house was big and new, and the location was good. Of course, the price was naturally the most expensive. However, the Gu family had yet to ask for the price. They could discuss it slowly. Let's go to the next house. Gu Yundong planned to check all of them before deciding. It was necessary to compare the goods. The broker acknowledged the order and led them out. Once the door was locked, he led Gu Yundong and her father to the third house. Unexpectedly, when they walked to the room next door, the woman they had seen previously also came out. She nodded slightly at them and left with her head lowered. The broker walked in front and didn't notice. Gu Dajiang seemed to be considering the advantages and disadvantages of the 2 houses. Only Gu Yundong keenly noticed that the woman had secretly winked at her father. Damn it, They had only met once and this woman was already trying to seduce her father? Gu Yundong's face instantly darkened. She turned back to look at the second family and instantly ruled out this option. What a joke. After buying the house, her father would spend most of his time in the academy. Her mother would live in this house. If this woman had feelings for her father, wouldn't she find an opportunity to bully her mother? Madame Yang was not very vigilant against people. Chapter 621, decided. Gu Yundong shivered and quickened his pace. The broker took them to the third house. This one had 2 courtyards. It was smaller than the previous one, but it was not bad. There were also shops around. There was a little noise, but it was very convenient to travel. What satisfied Gu Yundong the most was that there was a well about 10 meters away from the house. It was very convenient to get water. There was a river just beyond the end of the alley behind the house. It was also convenient to wash clothes. This place was very suitable for living, but it was not suitable for studying. Gu Yundong walked to Gu Dajiang's side and asked him softly, "Father, which of these 3 houses do you think is the best?" She thought that Gu Dajiang would choose the first school. The atmosphere there was the most intense. Unexpectedly, he pointed here and said, "This house is the best. It's neither big nor small, and it's convenient to go out. If your mother wants to go shopping later, there's no need to go far away. If your mother wants to talk, there's no need to suppress her voice. Also, this courtyard can grow flowers for your mother." What Gu Dajiang didn't say was that Madame Yang used to like to plant flowers, but when she was in the Gu family, conditions didn't allow it. Later, when they arrived at Yongfu village, Gu Yundong did not know that she had such a hobby. She only saw her mother sometimes holding a kettle and watering the fruits and vegetables in the courtyard. Gu Yundong was speechless when she heard Gu Dajiang's reasons. She paused and asked hesitantly, "Father, don't you think that the noise will affect your studies?" Gu Dajiang was stunned. He laughed and said, "The noise? You think this is noise?" In the past, it was noisy in Gu village. When I was an accountant, there were countless customers coming and going in that restaurant. They kept talking every now and then. Yet, I was still able to read books, right? Gu Yundong slapped her forehead. Yes, her father had never been afraid of noise. He had long developed a bronze skin and iron bones. Moreover, this was a house with 2 courtyards. He would be reading in the study at the back and there was almost no sound. This one, then? Gu Dajiang nodded. Seeing that they were whispering, the broker did not disturb them. Seeing that they were almost done with their discussion, he smiled and asked, "Master Gu, Miss Gu, have you thought about it? Do you like any of the 3 houses? If not, you have to find a place further away from the academy, or you can rent a house. However, it's always inconvenient to rent a house. The main reason is that if the owners suddenly don't want to rent the house anymore, it's very troublesome to find another house." Gu Yundong nodded. "What's the price of these 3 houses?" The broker knew that there was a chance when he heard that. He quickly said, "The first house is close to the academy. Although it's only 1 courtyard, it still costs 1,200 taels. The second house is big and it's a 2-courtyard house. Moreover, it has just been renovated and costs 1,700 taels of silver. As for the third house, it's also a 2-courtyard house, but it's a little small. It costs 1,500 taels of silver." Gu Dajiang was shocked. So expensive? This was almost comparable to the property prices in the capital, right? Gu Yundong also frowned, but she was more or less confident. This was the prefectural city, and weren't the houses here equivalent to school district houses? Modern school district houses were expensive, and ancient school district houses were not inferior. Moreover, Tianhai Academy had been here for 100 years. Didn't the houses around here get more expensive every year? Besides, as long as there was a top scholar or even an honorable scholar in the academy, the surroundings would be said to be a good place for outstanding people. 1,500 taels. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and asked the broker to find the owner. Chapter 622, Auntie Disdain. The owner lived not far away. When he heard that someone wanted to buy the house, he immediately rushed over. Gu Dajiang bargained with him, but the owner was very tight-lipped and refused to let go. Master Gu, you also know that the houses here are at this price. It's not that I don't want to give you a discount, but we can't ruin the market, right? Besides, my house is indeed worth this price. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that I'm a little tight on money recently, I really wouldn't have sold this house. Gu Yundong frowned. The weather was very hot, and she really did not have the patience to bargain. In the end, both sides took a step back and agreed on 1,400 taels. After buying the house, Gu Yundong followed Gu Dajiang back to Aunt Kes' house. Aunt Kes' house had already been tidied up. As soon as Gu Yundong entered, she saw Madame Yang, Tong Shuetao, and Gu Yunka squatting in the courtyard, dealing with the cicadas. Gu Yundong was speechless. When she was in the carriage, she had told the young lady how to prepare this thing, but she did not expect her to really do it as soon as they returned home. It seemed that it was almost done. Only Aunt Ke stood in the room with a look of disdain and refused to approach. Gu Yundong squatted down and took a look at the cicadas that Gu Yunka had handled. Yes, very good. She took off their wings and removed their heads and tails, leaving only a little bit of meat the size of a thumbnail. It was quite clean. The little girl looked up as if she was asking for praise. Big sister, did I do the right thing? That's right. You're smart. The little girl immediately smiled in satisfaction. She turned around and worked even harder to prepare the rest of the cicadas. Gu Yundong grabbed her hand and looked at it. The cicada's feet had small barbs. Gu Yunk's tender little fingers could easily be broken, but she was not afraid. Looking at her tender hands, they were all red. But when she met her expectant gaze, Gu Yundong could only smile helplessly and tap her forehead. All right, wash those first. Eldest sister will cook them. The cicadas would only taste good if they were stir-fried. She poured oil, added ginger, onions, and garlic, and poured all the clean cicadas down. There was a tearing sound, and the sound was pleasant to the ears. After a while, the fragrance exploded and instantly filled the entire kitchen. When Xiao Qingyuan and the others entered, the fragrance instantly entered their noses. Zhu followed the fragrance to the kitchen and was stunned when he saw the black cicadas. What is this? Meat. Gu Yundong smiled. Zhu stopped asking. No matter what meat it was, it smelled delicious. Therefore, when the 2 large plates of cicadas were served, Zhu couldn't wait to pick one up and stuff it into its mouth. Gu Yundong reminded him, remove the outer shell. Zhu hurriedly bit it open and dug out the meat inside. His eyes instantly widened. Delicious. What kind of meat is this? I've never eaten it before. It's too delicious. Aunt Ku, who was at the side, said coldly, that's cicada meat. It's the meat of the cicadas that are always so noisy on the tree. Worms. Zhu was stunned. Shu also looked at the 2 plates of black things in surprise. Zheng Gang almost dropped his chopsticks. Xiao Qingyuan didn't mind. He had actually eaten it before, but in the past, he had always roasted it and eaten it without cutting off the ends. Therefore, he always felt that it had a bitter taste. So cicadas could only be partly eaten? He had learned something new. He quickly ate without any burden and even praised Gu Yundong. It's delicious. Then, Zhu, Shu, and Zheng Gang quickly reached their chopsticks into the plates. Chapter 623, Check the shop. On the other side, Gu Yunka had already peeled off a pile of shells on the table. Tong Shuetao knew what this was. Although she was a little hesitant at first, ever since the fragrance wafted into her nose, she no longer had any thoughts. She quickly ate. The Gu family did not say anything. They did not think so before, but now they realized that there seemed to be a lot of people, but too few cicadas. Auntie had always despised it. Even though she had salivated because of the fragrance, she had never thought of eating it. However, now that she saw that everyone at the table was like the reincarnation of a hungry ghost and did not even have the time to speak, afraid that it would delay them from eating, she actually became suspicious. Was it really that delicious? She hesitated again and again. Seeing that everyone's heads were lowered, she finally couldn't help but secretly take one. Then, she turned around as if nothing had happened and looked at the black cicada. She closed her eyes and bit it. It's actually not bad. It doesn't feel disgusting at all. It smells good. Auntie expressed that she could still accept this. After finishing the one in her mouth, she turned around and was about to take another one when she realized that it was empty. Both plates were empty. Were these people the reincarnations of hungry ghosts? Zhu leaned back in the chair in satisfaction and sighed. I didn't expect this cicada to be so delicious. Why didn't I notice it before? Shu, why don't we catch another bag of cicadas tomorrow? Sure, Shu agreed. Xiao Qingyuan glanced at them from the corner of his eye. Capture and fry them by yourselves. Zhu and Shu were speechless. Wasn't this making things difficult for them? However, they did not dare to let Gu Yundong cook for them, so they could only look at Tong Shuitao. The latter thought of the delicious food in her mouth and clicked her tongue. She nodded straightforwardly. Sure, no problem. Only then was Xiao Qingyuan satisfied. He asked about the situation at Tianhai Academy today. Everyone was very happy to know that Gu Dajiang had passed Mountain Elder Qi's assessment and could report to the academy tomorrow. Xiao Qingyuan was also progressing smoothly. The shop assistant called Laishi brought us to see 5 shops. I bought 2 that are quite close. One will be Gus, and the other will be a pharmacy in the future. Do you want to take a look tomorrow? Xiao Qingyuan wanted to buy 2 adjacent shops, but it was too difficult. He could only find 2 close ones. The pharmacy was not in a hurry. The county's pharmacy had just started on the track. It was not easy to buy medicinal herbs, especially when they had to find a shopkeeper who knew medicine. Therefore, they had to be steady and not be in a hurry. I'll go take a look. Gu Yundong was still a little surprised. He did not expect it to be decided in a day. She turned to look at Gu Dajiang. Father, is it okay for you to go to the academy tomorrow? Gu Dajiang had just taken a sip of water when he almost choked as he heard this. He looked at his daughter with a complicated expression. Yundong, I'm not a child anymore. I'm already in my 30s. I can even go to the capital alone, let alone the academy. Gu Yundong laughed dryly before realizing that Gu Dajiang was not Madame Yang or Yunshu or Yunka. Then I'll go look at the shops tomorrow. Gu Dajiang waved his hand. Go, go. Go do your work. Hence, the next day, Gu Yundong, Xiao Qingyuan, Zheng Gang, and the others went to the shops. Gu Dajiang and Shui Rong went to the academy, while the others went to the house they had bought yesterday to tidy up the courtyard. Chapter 624, Who are you? The shop that Xiao Qingyuan had bought was not in the center of the prefecture capital, but it was still a prosperous area. The road in front of the shop was very wide, and there were many people coming and going. The shop was a 2-story building with a small courtyard at the back. The courtyard was not big, but it was enough to accommodate people. Gu Yundong walked around the shop and was very satisfied. Seeing this, Xiao Qingyuan couldn't help but laugh and say, this shop used to be a bookstore. The owner was a scholar who only read books. He wasn't good at managing the bookstore left behind by his father, so he handed it over to the original shopkeeper. Unfortunately, the shopkeeper was a greedy person. Not only did he sell inferior goods, but he also secretly embezzled a lot of money from the shop. Not long ago, a scholar did not receive the remuneration he deserved after copying books for the bookstore. He could not help but shout in the academy, allowing the owner to know about it. Only then did the owner start to investigate the shop. The result almost made him faint from anger. Not only did the shop suffer a huge loss, but it also owed a lot of foreign debt. He immediately sent the shopkeeper to the government and got back a portion of the money, but there was still a huge debt that he could not fill. Scholars cared about their reputation the most, especially since the bookstore owed many students money for their hard work. He had no choice but to sell the shop. Gu Yundong sighed and sympathized with the scholar. However, she quickly threw it aside and began to think about how to renovate the shop in front of him. "Why don't we get Uncle Feng to come over?" Xiao Qingyuan suggested. "He has worked in the prefectural city before. He knows people here. We won't have to worry about not having any connections." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. Sure. She had a good impression of Feng Daning. Uncle Feng was the one who helped renovate Gus previously. Now, Uncle Feng had a lot of work to do. He already had a mature workforce under him, but most of the work he took on was from the nearby villages. Occasionally, people from the town and county would look for him. But Gu Yundong knew that Uncle Feng was also ambitious and naturally hoped to go further and higher. The renovation of the shop did not require many people. Uncle Feng only needed to bring 2 helpers. Tomorrow morning, I'll get Ashu to go back quickly and bring Uncle Feng over. Sure. Gu Yundong thought that tonight, she would have to make a renovation plan according to the structure of this shop. Just as the 2 of them were chatting, a few voices suddenly came from outside. Gu Yundong and Xiao Qingyuan looked at each other and walked into the shop. As soon as they came out, they saw a familiar middle-aged man striding in and glaring at them with an unfriendly expression. "It's you?" Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment. Then, she suddenly remembered. Wasn't this middle-aged man the person she saw at Xianxia restaurant the day before yesterday who wanted to reserve a private room? According to the shop assistant Laishi, he was the steward of the Zhou family. Steward Zhou was furious. He looked at Gu Yundong and the other 2 and sneered. "Did you buy this shop?" Gu Yundong frowned. She had always been friendly to friendly people. She ignored people who seemed to have eyes on their heads. Therefore, after glancing at the middle-aged man, she turned back to her shop. On the other hand, Zhenggang asked him coldly, "Who are you?" "Don't care who I am. Do you know that my master took a fancy to this shop first?" All right, he had previously fought over the private room with her and now, he was snatching the shop from her. Where did this bandit come from? His reach was getting longer and longer. Chapter 625. The person he found. Zhenggang wondered if there was something wrong with this person's brain. If your master liked it first, why didn't he buy it? If you didn't buy it yourself, why are you blaming others for taking action? What kind of people are these? Seeing that they were silent, the middle-aged man became even angrier. Did you hear that? Our master took a fancy to this shop first. Our master only went back to consider for a day, and you intercepted him. Aren't you being too unreasonable? There has to be a first come, first served rule, right? Gu Yundong had never heard of such a thing. She turned her head and sized up the middle-aged man. She smiled and said, "What a nice thing to say. What do you mean by going back to consider for a day? I'm afraid you wanted to lower the price, right? You clearly knew that the original owner of this shop was in a hurry to sell it, but you still dawdled and wanted to buy this shop at a low price. Are you blaming others for your bad intentions? Did he think everyone was a fool?" The middle-aged man's expression changed when he heard that. "In short, we took a fancy to this shop first. How much did you buy it for?" "Well, give it to you." Gu Yundong regretted talking to him just now. What was there to talk about with a fool? Xiao Qingyuan stood in front of the middle-aged man with a cold expression. "Get out." "You." Before he could finish, he couldn't help but shrink his neck and look at Xiao Qingyuan in fear. In the end, the middle-aged man straightened his neck for a moment and took 2 steps back in fear. This person looked fierce. If he attacked, wouldn't he suffer? He snorted coldly and flicked his sleeves before leaving. When they reached the door, he pointed at them. Just you wait. Without waiting for Xiao Qingyuan to look over, he quickly ran away. As soon as he left, Zhengang couldn't help but frown. Boss, will this person bring us trouble? There won't be any trouble. After all, we just came to the prefectural city. If the other party is rich, Zhengang was worried. He was used to being cautious. When doing business, he would not offend anyone, especially when he had just arrived at an unfamiliar place. But Gu Yundong did not seem to care, nor did Xiao Qingyuan. He sighed. Gu Yundong saw that he was still very worried, so she smiled and explained, Uncle Zheng, you don't have to worry too much. If this Zhou family steward is rich and powerful and we can't offend him, when we went to Jianghu restaurant 2 days ago, the shopkeeper and the waiter would have mentioned it. Moreover, the other party was the one who was arrogant and unreasonable first. If they did not beat up such a person, what should they do? Gu Yundong felt that if she showed weakness, the steward would definitely push his luck. Zheng Gang was stunned. It made sense. The three of them continued to look at the shop, but not long after, there was another commotion outside the door. Zheng Gang thought that the middle-aged man had returned, but he didn't expect that it wasn't. It was a few hooligans from the streets. They seemed to be collecting protection fees in this area. As soon as the hooligan leader entered, he looked at the three people opposite him and asked, if you want to open a shop here, you have to know the rules. What are the rules? Xiao Qingyuan took a step forward and narrowed his eyes as he sized them up. The hooligans were a little afraid of his cold face, but they still had some confidence because they had more people. This street is covered by us, so the shops along the street have to give us some protection money. It's not much. 100 taels a month. Zheng Gang sucked in a breath of cold air. You guys are robbing. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at the middle-aged man hiding outside the shop. It was indeed the people he had called over. Chapter 626. Kicked off. Gu Yundong thought that this person would go back to his Zhou mansion to call for help. She did not expect him to have some brains. He was looking for the local hooligans to cause trouble here. At this moment, the middle-aged man was hiding at the entrance of the alley opposite. He said to the person beside him, well, go over and mediate when they get into a conflict later. It'll be much easier to buy their shop then. Is it useful? The person beside him looked like a servant. He was still a little worried. Steward Zhou snorted. Of course it's useful. Who would be willing to pay a protection fee of 100 taels a month? It's a pity that we came a step later. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had to give money to those local hooligans to help. Steward Zhou pursed his lips. Perhaps in this way, we can lower the price. After a pause, he asked, when will Master come? He should be here soon. Steward Zhou was a little anxious. We have to get it done before old Master comes. Coincidentally, the three people in the shop didn't seem to have a good temper. They would definitely quarrel soon. He would just wait. The atmosphere in the shop was indeed tense. Zheng Gang looked at the local hooligans and said, I've never heard of anyone on this street paying protection fees, let alone 100 taels a month. That's right. In the past, you didn't have to pay it. Now, you have to. What's wrong? Are you going to give it to us? If you don't blame us for being rude. You, Zheng Gang was furious. I'm not giving it to you. Why don't we see how rude you are? Gu Yundong retracted her gaze from Steward Zhou and glanced at the local hooligans. A local hooligan immediately glanced at her, and then his eyes lit up. His gaze became unrestrained. Yo, there's a little girl here. She's quite good-looking. Do you want to know how to be rude? Actually, it's simple. Why don't you come over and kiss me? Ah, before he could finish speaking, the local hooligan felt a pain in his stomach. His entire body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Pa! Bang! The sound of the landing rang out. Not only was the local hooligan stunned, but the other gangsters were also stunned. The smile on their faces was still hanging as they froze. After a while, everyone turned around and looked at Xiao Qingyuan, who had attacked. They swallowed hard. Xiao Qingyuan glanced at them coldly. Who else wants to be rude? The local hooligans trembled and immediately took a few steps back. Steward Zhou and the servant were even more stunned. Just like that, the man was sent flying? What should we do? The servant was so nervous that his tongue was tied. That person seems to know martial arts. Even if we go over together, we won't be able to beat him. Those local hooligans won't be able to do anything either. Why don't we forget about that shop? Steward Zhou was also so frightened that he trembled. However, when he heard the servant's words, he slapped him. What nonsense are you talking about? That shop was chosen by Old Master. Can I just give it up? Looks like we have to rely on ourselves. You, quickly call Ah Feng over. He's a guard of our residence. He's very skilled. He can definitely deal with that man. The servant nodded and immediately stood up. Unexpectedly, before he could take a step, he stopped again and pointed at a carriage not far away. There's no need to go. Ah Feng accompanied Old Master over. Steward Zhou suddenly turned his head, and his expression instantly changed. Chapter 627, Why are they here? What should we do now? The servant asked in a daze. Steward Zhou thought for a moment, gritted his teeth, and said, What else can we do? Tell Old Master directly. As he spoke, Steward Zhou hurriedly came out of the alley and stopped Old Master Zhou's carriage before it arrived at the shop. He apologized with a sad face, Old Master, I'm sorry. I couldn't do what you instructed. I'm guilty. The curtain of the carriage opened, and Old Master Zhou got out of the carriage. He frowned at him. What happened? Master, the shop you like has been bought by someone. Old Master Zhou kicked him. Useless thing. You can't even deal with a shop. Steward Zhou endured the kick, but he blamed it on Gu Yundong and the others in his heart. Master, I had no choice. I had already negotiated the price with the original owner of the shop, Masterly was waiting for me to tell Master, so that he could transfer the ownership of the shop after I gave the money. I didn't expect, as he spoke, he sobbed. I didn't expect 3 people to suddenly come and insist on buying that shop. They even said that they would give Eldest Li an additional 200 taels of silver. When I heard that, how could this be? We decided to buy this shop first. However, those 3 people were completely unreasonable. One of them was a man who had some skills and directly threw me out. I couldn't beat him, so this shop, Old Master Zhou's eyes widened. Outrageous. There's actually such an unreasonable bandit. That's right. It's too much to buy something with force just because he has some martial arts. Old Master Zhou sneered. So what if he has martial arts? Ah Feng, go and meet him. Yes, Master. Ah Feng cupped his hands and walked towards the shop first. Only then did Old Master Zhou and Steward Zhou slowly follow behind. Steward Zhou revealed a smile and felt a little pleased. When Ah Feng walked to the entrance of the shop, he happened to see the local hooligans retreating in a panic. One of them almost bumped into him. That person turned around and happened to recognize him. Wasn't this the Zhou family's guard? The local hooligans immediately did not retreat. With the Zhou family's guard here, wouldn't these people be crushed to death with one hand? Ah Feng was an orthodox martial arts practitioner. They could not defeat him even if they were combined. Therefore, the local hooligans quickly moved aside and let Ah Feng walk in. Ah Feng saw Zheng at first, and then Xiao Qingyuan. Then, his expression changed instantly. The third glance, he saw Gu Yundong. Ah Feng suddenly took a step back. His pupils constricted and his body trembled uncontrollably. How could it be them? Gu Yundong no longer remembered this person, but Xiao Qingyuan had a deep impression of him. Back then, the master of Ah Feng's family had almost caused his Yundong to fall off the horse. He really did not expect to see him again. What's the matter? Xiao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and asked. Ah Feng subconsciously shook his head and turned to look for his master. Old Master Zhou had already walked forward. Steward Zhou pointed at Xiao Qingyuan and the other two and said, "Old Master, it's them." Old Master Zhou raised his eyes slightly and glanced at Xingang, who was at the front. "It's you who took a fancy to my shop and did not resort to tricks." Feng immediately tugged at his sleeve. "Master, look over there." He pointed at Gu Yundong's position in a low voice. Chapter 628. Long time no see. Zhou Dafu frowned and looked in the direction where Ah Feng was pointing. The next moment, his chubby body jumped up nimbly and he instantly took 2 steps back. He looked at the two of them with a trace of fear in his eyes. You, how could it be you? Why are you here?" Oh, Gu Yundong knew this person. After all, he was the person who gave her money. She took another look at Steward Zhou, who was following behind her, and immediately understood. So this Zhou mansion was that Zhou mansion. "Old Master Zhou, it's been a long time. How have you been recently? Have you been earning a lot of money?" Zhou Dafu hurriedly shook his head. "It's not a lot. It's not a lot at all." Zhou Dafu's heart ached when she had extorted so much money from him last time. Now that he saw Gu Yundong's cunning expression, he instantly had a bad feeling. "If it's not a lot, how did you find so many local hooligans to cause trouble for our shop?" Zhou Dafu was stunned. He looked at the group of people and a trace of confusion flashed across his face. However, when his gaze landed on Steward Zhou, he instantly understood. He glared at Steward Zhou fiercely and immediately said, "No, you've misunderstood. I don't even know these people." He really didn't know them. He felt wronged. Steward Zhou was completely stunned. What was going on? Did Old Master know these people? And they seemed to be very afraid. He looked at Ah Feng again. The latter did not even dare to take a step forward. Wait, where did these people come from? Steward Zhou felt a little uneasy. Gu Yundong smiled. So you don't know him? I thought that Old Master Zhou had taken a fancy to this shop and deliberately found someone to sabotage it. They even asked us for 100 taels of silver a month for protection. When I heard this just now, I was so frightened that I trembled. I would be having nightmares at night. Please stop having nightmares. If you continue, you'll have nightmares later. The corners of Zhou Dafu's mouth twitched. He shook his head firmly. I really don't know them. Those people are simply outrageous. They don't do proper business all day long and specialize in extortion. Miss, don't worry. We're all acquaintances. I'll help you deal with these people. Gu Yundong nodded. All right, then I'll have to trouble Old Master Zhou. It's no trouble. I'll take her away now. After saying that, he gave Ah Feng a look. Without waiting for Gu Yundong to say anything, he quickly turned around and left in a hurry. Gu Yundong looked at his back speechlessly. Why was he in such a hurry? She had not even mentioned the issue of compensation. However, Zhou Dafu's heart ached so much for the money that his legs almost ran away. The local hooligans were completely confused. When they heard Old Master Zhou's words, they wanted to refute, but when they met Ah Feng's warning gaze, they immediately did not dare to say anything. Was this Old Master Zhou's plan? Hence, after walking far away from the shop, the local hooligan leader, who had already recovered from the beating, asked, Old Master Zhou, what does this mean? Zhou Dafu glanced at them. These people were not worth his time at all. He directly handed them over to Ah Feng to deal with. He only turned around and looked at Steward Zhou. Then, he kicked him hard in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. You bastard, why don't you telling me the truth? Steward Zhou was shocked and quickly got up. His face was pale and he did not dare to have any other thoughts. He told him everything in detail. After hearing this, Zhou Dafu's expression turned even worse. He kicked him again. After Ah Feng sent the local hooligans away, Zhou Dafu said with a dark expression, "Go and find out the background of this man and woman." Chapter 629. Different reactions. Zhou Dafu did not expect to see Gu Yundong and Xiao Qingyuan here. The last time they met was on the road from Yongning Prefecture to Wanqing Prefecture. At that time, he thought that they were from Wanqing Prefecture. He did not expect them to open a shop in Xuanhe Prefecture. At the thought that he was about to be extorted by the two of them again, Zhou Dafu felt extremely unhappy. He turned around and kicked Steward Zhou hard again. "Take care of those local hooligans yourself. Also, I'll punish you with half a year's worth of salary. If there's a next time, I'll sell you off. This old servant doesn't dare." Steward Zhou laughed bitterly in his heart. He didn't dare to ask what was going on with those people. He only knew that he had kicked an iron plate. Not only did he not get anything good, but he also had to lose a large sum of money. Zhou Dafu looked up in the direction of the shop again and cursed his bad luck. He called Ah Feng to turn around and return to the residence. When the few people in the shop saw that their backs had completely disappeared, they turned around and continued discussing. However, at the same time, after a few people watched the commotion outside the door, they turned around and returned to the shops next door. The one on the left was a shop that sold jewelry. When the shop assistant entered, he said to the shopkeeper, "The new owner next door seems to be surnamed Gu. She's a young lady. I don't know her background, but she has a strong temper and doesn't look easy to provoke. One of the men is quite skilled. Even Ah Feng from the Zhou mansion is afraid of him. I guess he has suffered before." On the right was a ready-made clothing store. The shop assistant also told the shopkeeper what he had just seen. Even Zhou Dafu is afraid of the owner of the shop next door. I reckon that the girl surnamed Gu has a strong backing. She doesn't take Zhou Dafu seriously at all. She's not afraid of the local hooligan either. She beat him up just like that. She's not afraid of others coming to take revenge. The shop opposite was a pastry shop. The shop assistant clicked his tongue when he entered. The boss is a girl. She came out to do business at such a young age. She's like a newborn calf that doesn't fear the tiger. Peace is the most important thing when doing business. She doesn't take it seriously at all. Either she has a strong backing or she's too naive. I think this shop won't be open for long. The managers of the three shops had different reactions. The left and right shops were still unsure of Gu Yundong's background, but they were still neighbors in the future. It was better to be on good terms. Therefore, the two shopkeepers asked the waiter to send some cooling tea for the hot day. This was the first time Gu Yundong had encountered such treatment, even though this was the third shop she had opened. After all, her first shop was in Fengkai County. The shop was originally one from the Tao family. Most of the shopkeepers in the surrounding shops were still afraid of the Tao family. In the beginning, they did not dare to interact with her openly. Her second shop was in Wanqing Prefecture. The shop was originally owned by the Xian family, but it was confiscated later on before it fell into his hands. The shopkeepers in the surrounding shops didn't dare to ask around for fear of getting into trouble. As a result, Gu Yundong was stunned when she saw the two waiters coming in with friendly attitudes to greet her and deliver tea. Zheng Gang, on the other hand, accepted it politely and chatted with them happily. After they left, Zheng Gang said, "I just asked around." The two shop assistants said that Zhou Dafu hasn't been in the prefectural city for long and has a certain amount of wealth, but there's no need to be too afraid of him. He had a rich family background, but his foundation was not stable. The truly rich and powerful people in the Xuanhe prefecture probably did not take him seriously. Gu Yundong nodded. The shop has just opened. Brother Xiao and I will still stay in the prefectural city. We're not afraid of them finding trouble again. But shouldn't we hire an assistant first? Chapter 630. Treated as a thief. Gu Yundong was not very familiar with Xianxia Prefecture. Jianghu still had to be a shopkeeper in Fengkai County for 3 months. He had to nurture Chen Jinkai before he could come to the prefectural city. During this period of time, she could not let Zhenggang work alone. That would be too tiring. She had to hire 2 more people to help. Recruit 1. Before Zhuangzi comes to the prefectural city, let Shu stay here for 3 months, Xiao Qingyuan said. Firstly, Shu was quite skilled now. If a local hooligan came, he would be shocked. Secondly, although the shop in the prefecture capital was big, 2 assistants were enough. If they recruited more, they would probably fight when Zhuangzi came over later. Gu Yundong nodded. Why don't we write a recruitment notice outside the shop? Xiao Qingyuan was about to nod when Zhenggang said hesitantly, Boss, can I recommend someone? Gu Yundong was stunned. Of course. It would be best if Uncle Zheng had a suitable candidate. It would also save us the trouble of looking for people with completely unfamiliar personalities. Zhenggang sighed. I do have a candidate, but, Gu Yundong and Xiao Qingyuan looked at each other. Go ahead. In the past, when I was a shopkeeper in this prefectural city, there was a shop assistant called Changshan. He was very hard-working and dutiful. However, there was a day when money was lost in the shop. No matter how hard I searched, I couldn't find it. Later, someone said that Changshan's mother was sick. She originally didn't have the money to treat her illness, but she suddenly obtained a sum of money and used that money to buy good medicine to treat her illness. Zhenggang sighed. Boss suspected that Changshan had stolen the money. Changshan naturally denied it and explained that the money for his mother's treatment was given to him by a kind person because Changshan had helped that person. Boss didn't believe it and asked him to find that kind person. However, he was only passing by the Xianxia prefecture. How could Changshan find him? Boss beat Changshan up and chased him out of the shop. At that time, this matter was quite big. Many shops around knew about it. Therefore, after Changshan was chased away, it was too difficult to find a job. I knew that Changshan definitely didn't do this, but I didn't have evidence. I couldn't help him even if I wanted to. It wasn't until a couple of days before I left that shop that I unintentionally heard that the money was secretly taken away by the boss' son. It had nothing to do with Changshan. Unfortunately, so what if he knew? His old boss was already dead and he had been chased out of the shop. The only thing he could do was to go to Changshan's house and tell him the truth. Changshan cried especially sadly when he heard that. The injustice on his body was finally washed away. He was not a thief. However, the surrounding neighbors did not eliminate their prejudice against Changshan because of Zhenggang's testimony. They even felt that it was because Zhenggang had been chased away by the boss, so he was dissatisfied and took revenge on the boss. Anyway, Zhenggang did not have evidence. Zhenggang really wanted to help Changshan, but he was also worried that those rumors would affect the business of the shop, so he hesitated. Gu Yundong nodded. Of course I believe in Uncle Zheng. As long as Changshan's character is fine, it doesn't matter. Zhuangzi used to be a hooligan in the village, but hasn't he become a shopkeeper now? But I want to meet the shop assistant called Shunzi first. Zhenggang was overjoyed. The wrinkles on his face were squeezed into a ball. I'll go find him now. Chapter 631. Cruel. As soon as Zhenggang finished speaking, he turned around and was about to leave. However, he stopped after taking a step and said embarrassedly, Shunzi's house is a little far from here. When will the boss return to the inn? Why don't I bring him to the inn? Gu Yundong thought for a moment and asked, where is his house? South of the city. South of the city? Coincidentally, we're almost done looking at the shops. I plan to go to the new house to take a look. I'll go with you so that you won't have to run around on a hot day. The Tianhai Academy was in the south of the city, so naturally, the house she had just bought was also in the south. Zheng nodded repeatedly. All right. Before I leave, I'll take a look at the shop that Brother Xiao bought. Gu Yundong turned around and saw Xiao Qingyuan's disappointed expression. However, after hearing her words, the corners of his lips curled up. Xiao Qingyuan took the lead and walked forward. It's not far. We'll be there soon. It was really not far. It was only a street away. Compared to Gu Yundong's shop, the one for the pharmacy here was smaller. However, the backyard was much larger. After all, it would require more space to make medicine in the future. There were no medical centers nearby. It was very inconvenient for many people to get medicine. It seemed to be quite suitable for opening a pharmacy. However, it was still early. Xiao Qingyuan planned to rent out the shop first and collect some money. After checking the shop, the three of them got into the carriage and drove towards the south of the city. Changshan's house was said to be in the south of the city, but it was actually quite a distance away from the house that Gu Yundong had bought. Compared to Gu Yundong's school district house, Changshan's place was one of the slums. As soon as they entered the alley, the road immediately narrowed. In addition, many people's things were piled at the door, blocking most of the alley. Gu Yundong and the others could not enter the alley on the huge carriage at all. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Zheng face. Boss, why don't you wait here with Qingyuan? I'll go in and call Changshan out. Not only was this alley narrow and noisy, but there were also all kinds of smells mixed together. It was simply indescribable. However, Gu Yundong waved her hand. No need. Let's go in. The village is full of pits. It's not much better from here. Why can't we walk? The carriage was placed at the entrance of a small restaurant at the intersection. After paying a few copper coins to the shopkeeper to help take care of it, the three of them walked into the alley. Although the alley was a little messy, the smell of life was very strong. Children were running around happily on the road. Some women sat at the door, holding a sewing basket and looking at it. From time to time, they would yell. Occasionally, there would be the sound of metal striking and loud quarrels coming from the house. Changshan's house seemed to be very far inside. Zheng led them for a long distance before finally stopping. He pointed at a small dilapidated courtyard in front of him and said, "That's it." Just as she finished speaking, the door of the courtyard was opened. Zheng eyes lit up and he said, "He's Changshan." Gu Yundong looked up and saw a skinny young man holding a pole and about to leave. Zheng raised his hand and was about to call out to him when he heard another ear-piercing voice. "Changshan, are you going out to work again? How can you find work? Those shops shouldn't need a thief, right?" The person who spoke was a woman, probably Changshan's neighbor. Her tone was very harsh. She sized up Changshan and came to a realization. "You're going out with a pole to be a porter. I heard that you lost your chamber pot job 2 days ago." Chapter 632. Damn it! Changshan clenched his fists tightly and turned to look at the woman who spoke angrily. However, he was not good with words. After his face turned red, he only said, "It's none of your business." "Io, how is it none of my business?" The woman laughed exaggeratedly. "Let me tell you, because of you, our reputation in this area is ruined. If our son hadn't been implicated by you, he wouldn't have been unable to find an easy job. You still have the cheek to continue living here. If it were me, I would have long found a place to hang myself so that my mother and sister would dare to go out." Changshan was trembling with anger, especially when the other party mentioned his mother and sister. He almost couldn't control himself. There was a crashing sound. At this moment, someone came out from behind Changshan. That person held a basin of water in his hand and splashed it directly at the woman opposite him. The woman was instantly drenched and looked exceptionally disheveled. She screamed and jumped around. "Damn it, how dare you splash it on me? What's wrong with splashing water on you?" The person finished splashing water and put away the wooden basin in her hand. She pointed at the woman's nose and scolded, who ruined our reputation in this area. It's you. If you hadn't gone around slandering my brother as a thief, my brother wouldn't have lost one job after another. Your son can't find a job because he's lazy. What does it have to do with my brother? Don't blame my brother for all the nonsense. My brother isn't a thief. My mother and I believe him. Don't talk nonsense for no reason. Get lost. You be asterisk tch. No wonder you can't get married. You're so fierce and vicious at such a young age. You deserve to stay at home and be a spinster for the rest of your life. The woman was furious. She wiped the water off her face and realized that it was stinky. Her face turned even paler. The Ding family really made the right choice to break off the engagement. They long saw that you're not a good person. Little whore, in the future, you'll be. Before she could finish speaking, Changshan took a step forward with a dark expression. His fists were clenched tightly, as if he was about to hit someone. The woman was so frightened that she took a step back and stuttered, What are you trying to do? If you dare to say anything bad about my sister again, I won't be polite to you. Changshan kicked the stool beside the woman and the needle basket on it fell to the ground. Ah, the woman screamed and wanted to curse, but when she saw the siblings glaring at her, she immediately cowered. She only shouted indignantly, You wait. When my husband comes back, he'll teach you a lesson. Changshan glared at her and turned to go back. He picked up the pole on the ground again and said to his sister, Su Qing, go in and close the door. I'll come back tonight. Su Qing frowned and looked at the pole in his hand. She wanted to say something but hesitated. After a while, she didn't say anything and only nodded. Brother, be careful. Don't tire yourself out. All right, I understand. Changshan turned around and was about to leave when he heard a cheerful and familiar voice. Changshan. He was stunned. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw 3 people standing not far behind him. One of them was the shopkeeper he was familiar with, Zhenggang. He was overjoyed. Shopkeeper, why are you here? I'm here to look for you. Our boss is looking for a shop assistant. She heard that you're hardworking and insisted on coming over to take a look. Zhenggang laughed. Chapter 633:1 Want you to be my shop assistant. Changshan was shocked, and so was Su Qing. The woman who was about to enter the room next door did not care about the water dripping from her body. She turned around and looked at Zhenggang and the other 2 in shock. Zhenggang chuckled. He wanted to say something just now, but his boss didn't let him move, so he could only watch. Now that the boss did not turn around and leave after seeing everything, it seemed that she planned to hire Changshan. He strode over and pointed at Yundong. Changshan, let me introduce you. This is my current boss, Miss Gu. She has opened a shop in the Prefectural city and is planning to hire a shop assistant. She asked if you want to come. Changshan's eyes suddenly lit up. When Yundong looked over, he trembled nervously. He leaned the pole against the door, not knowing what to do. He rubbed his hands and said, Su Qing was also very surprised, but when she saw her brother like this, she immediately expected better from him. She hurriedly looked at Yundong and said, Miss Gu, right? Come in first. It's very hot outside. Come in and have a glass of water to rest your feet. As she spoke, she moved aside and was about to let Yundong walk in. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a sharp voice came from behind. Not to be outdone, the woman shouted, Miss, don't fall for it. You'll be in big trouble if you hire Su Changshan to work in your shop. Everyone at the door looked at the woman in unison. Su Changshan and Su Qing's expressions changed drastically, and they trembled with anger. When the woman saw this, she said smugly, Miss, I'm afraid you don't know. This Su Changshan is hard-working, but his hands are dirty. In the past, he was chased out by the owner of his shop. He was accused of stealing money from the shop. Miss, if you really want to find a shop assistant, you can look for my son. My son has a good character. Su Qing wanted to scold her, but she was worried that she would leave a bad impression on Gu Yundong. However, Zheng Gang pointed at her and said angrily, "Nonsense. I've said before that Changshan is a good person. He never stole the boss money. Don't slander him here and ruin his reputation." Oh, it's you. I remember now. You did come a year ago. But you're on good terms with him. Perhaps you're in cahoots with him. You were also involved in stealing money. Miss, you must open your eyes wide and not fall for it. Otherwise, the shop will be emptied by them. Su Qing could no longer hold it in. She grabbed the pole beside her and wanted to rush over and smash her mouth. But Gu Yundong stopped her. Su Qing was stunned and felt uneasy. She was afraid that her brother's job would be ruined again. She was even more afraid that she might implicate shopkeeper Zheng. Gu Yundong looked at the woman and saw the smug look on her face. She laughed. I can judge for myself what kind of person Su Changshan is. As for whether your son has a good character, I can tell from your harshness as a mother. With that, she turned around and entered the courtyard without looking at her. The woman was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She immediately screamed, "You're calling me mean? Where did you come from, little b*tch? How dare you call me mean? Let me tell you." Xiao Qingyuan looked over coldly. The woman instantly felt a chill run down her spine. She felt even more frightened than when she faced the furious Su Changshan just now. She no longer hesitated and quickly turned around to go home, not daring to say a word. Only then did Xiao Qingyuan enter. Zheng Gang hurriedly followed. Chapter 634, Salary. On the other hand, Su Changshan and Su Qing stood at the door and looked at each other before entering the courtyard. The Su family's courtyard was really small, even smaller than Aunt Kes. Although Aunt Kes' house only had 2 sleeping rooms, the rooms were big. The 2 rooms in the Su family's house were pitifully small, as if they were one room that was separated by one wall. The central room was also small. When the 5 of them entered, the central room seemed to be filled. Su Qing quickly poured some water and stood behind Su Changshan. She looked uneasy. She was still worried that what the woman next door had said would leave a very bad impression on Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong took a sip of water to quench her thirst and went straight to the point. My surname is Gu. My shop is on Dahue Road. It's a little far from here and will open in a few days. The shopkeeper is Uncle Zheng. You're familiar with him. He needs 2 workers. One has already been chosen. Uncle Zheng recommended you to me and said that you're honest and hardworking, so I came over to take a look. What about you? What do you think? Do you have any intention of coming along? Su Qing was very happy, and the worry in her heart was relieved. She quickly turned to look at her brother. Su Changshan was still a little confused. This girl actually wanted to hire him as a shop assistant? How could he have a job? He didn't have to think about finding work every day. When he was a porter, his salary was low and often delayed. Moreover, he would work under Uncle Zheng. Uncle Zheng was a good person and never hit or scolded them casually. Except. After Su Changshan was done being excited, he gradually calmed down and said, Miss Gu, you heard it just now. I have a bad reputation. Are you referring to being treated as a thief? Uncle Zheng has already told me that. I trust him, so I hope you won't let him down. If you're willing, work hard in the shop in the future. I won't treat you badly. Hearing that she didn't mind, Su Changshan finally heaved a long sigh of relief. There was a happy smile on his face. I am willing. I'll do my best. Yes, about the salary, 3 taels of silver a month temporarily. If you do well in the future, your salary will increase. If you think there's no problem, we can sign the contract now. The salary in the prefectural city was higher. Jianghu did well in the county city, so she gave him 10 taels of silver. In the future, Yundong felt that there should be no problem with increasing his salary annually. She thought about it. After the new year, she could also raise the salary of the old employees at the workshop. When Su Changshan heard that it was 3 taels of silver, how could he not be willing? He hurriedly nodded. Independent Illinois, go borrow a pen and paper now. We can sign the contract soon. There's no need. I have the contract. You just need to put your thumbprint on it. Yundong had already prepared multiple employment contracts. The names and positions were different, but the contents were similar. Su Changshan took it and pressed his thumb on it without even reading. Yundong smiled. It seemed that Jianghu's trust was not wrong. Su Changshan also trusted Jianghu very much. She was quite satisfied with Su Changshan. Although he was not good with words, it could be seen that he was very protective of his family and was not afraid of hardship or exhaustion. Zhuangzi, on the other hand, was a smart person. He was eloquent and complimented Su Changshan. The two of them were very suitable for each other. If both of them could talk, they would probably quarrel. Yundong was about to leave after settling on the shop assistant. At this moment, the courtyard door was pushed open and an older woman came in with a basket. Chapter 635. The shop will close sooner or later. Seeing that there were a few strangers in the courtyard, the woman was stunned for a moment and looked at Su Changshan and his sister in confusion. Su Changshan quickly went forward to take the basket from her hand. Inside the basket were clothes. They were heavy, and the woman's palm had a mark. When Su Changshan saw this, he felt a little sad. However, he quickly smiled and placed the basket on the steps at the side. He said to the woman, "Mother, you're back. This is Uncle Zheng. You've seen him before. This is Miss Gu and Master Xiao. Miss Gu is opening a shop in the Prefectural city and asked me to be a shop assistant. I have a job now. Mother, you don't have to wash clothes for others in the future." Ever since Su Changshan was labeled as a thief, the Su family's life had become difficult. Su Changshan went out every day to find manual labor. Su Qing did some embroidery work at home, so Mother Su went to collect some clothes to wash. It was better in the summer. In the winter, the water was cold, and Mother Su's hands were often swollen like steamed buns. It was very tiring. Even so, she would not be able to earn much. Now that Su Changshan had a proper and stable job, his mother did not have to work so hard. When Mother Su heard that this stranger was the boss who was hiring her son, she immediately became excited. She hurriedly wiped her hands and invited Yundong in. "Boss Gu, don't stand there. Come in and sit. It's almost noon. Everyone, have lunch here. I'll go buy groceries now. It'll be quick." She turned around and was about to leave when Yundong quickly stopped her. "Aunt, you don't have to. I still have something on. I'm leaving now. It's rare for you to come here. How can you leave without eating? There's really no need." Jianghu also said, "Sister-in-law Su, rest for a while. In 2 days, ask Changshan to look for me at Dahui Road. Well, leave first." Xiao Qingyuan nodded and opened the courtyard door first, letting Yundong leave before going out. When Yundong went out, she saw the woman next door looking over. When Yundong looked back, she immediately retracted her head. Only after the three of them had left did the woman come out. She ran to the Su family's door and knocked. Su Qing came over to open the door. When she saw her, she closed the door without a word. The woman almost bumped her nose. You little b******. Are you feeling good now that you have a job? Just you wait. Let's see how long your brother can do this job. Humph." After saying that, he even spat on the ground. He's just a small shop assistant. He thinks he's a big shot. Who knows when that small shop will close down? She cursed and went back. Someone beside her asked curiously what was going on. The woman added fuel to the fire and told him not to go to that shop to buy things. To be able to hire a thief as a shop assistant, this stranger definitely did not do any legitimate business. However, when someone asked her what the shop was for and where it was, the woman could not answer for a moment. Mother Su asked the same question. Su Changshan touched his head and said in embarrassment, I didn't ask in detail. It seems to be a food business. But Uncle Zheng recommended it, so it definitely won't be bad. Mother, don't worry. It's just that the place is a little far. It's on Dahui Road. I might be late coming home in the future. Mother Su waved her hand. It's not a big deal. Later, you can bring me there so that I'll know where it is. I can even send you lunch. The shop is small, but it's not a big deal. Work hard. It's better than carrying bags for others. After a pause, she suddenly asked, I heard that young Master Xiao seems to call Miss Gu Yundong. Chapter 636, You're committing a sin. When Xiao Qingyuan went out, he did call out softly. If Mother Su had not been focused on them at that time, she might not have heard it. Su Changshan was stunned and nodded. Yes, I think Miss Gu's name is Gu Yundong. What's wrong, Mother? Mother Su frowned. I keep feeling that this name is a little familiar, as if I've heard it somewhere before. I just can't remember where. Su Qing smiled. Mother, this name isn't strange. There's another person called Li Yundong at the entrance of our alley. Boss Gu has always been in Fengkai County. She's only been here for 2 days. It's impossible for you to know her. That's true. Mother Su quickly stopped struggling. She was old now, so it was possible that she remembered wrongly. But you have to wear good clothes to work in the shop. Little Qing, I remember that there's still a piece of fabric in the cabinet. Make a new set of clothes for your brother. Don't embarrass the boss. Sure thing. With work to do, the 3 members of the Su family were completely different. All their gloominess was swept away, as if they were already standing in front of a bright future and did not have to worry anymore. Gu Yundong, who was in the carriage, had a good impression of the Su family. The family was simple. Su Changshan was an honest person, and his mother and sister were reasonable. They were not difficult to get along with and would not drag him down. With the shop assistant's matter settled, Gu Yundong felt relieved and went back to her new house. The few of them had just arrived at the alley outside when they saw a few wooden carts parked there. There was a lot of furniture placed horizontally on them. Seeing them, a Shu, who was instructing people to move the things, immediately came over. Young master, miss, according to your instructions, the house has been tidied up and the furniture has been bought. How is it? Not bad, right? Lai Shi brought us to buy it. The price is fair. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh when she saw his expression. She went up and touched the bed frame. It was indeed not bad. Yesterday, Auntie had gotten someone to calculate the most suitable date for moving. It would be today. Although it was a little rushed, there was no choice. His father had completed the admission procedures today, so they had to stay here. Hence, Shu and Ah Zhu's plan to capture the cicadas was ruined. They had to clean up the house and move. Fortunately, there were many of them and the house was clean. What needed to be tidied up was quickly tidied up. In addition, there were familiar people who showed them the way. They bought what needed to be bought. In just one morning, the house suddenly felt warm and homely. Gu Yundong looked into the house. Her parents lived in the main room, which had a small study. The left wing was for her and Yunke, and the right wing was for Yunshu and Yuanji. There was also a room for Shuirong and the rest. Every room was equipped with the most basic bed, cabinet and other things. It was very complete. Gu Yundong was very satisfied, but Auntie suddenly pulled her aside and asked, You've also bought a courtyard in the prefectural city. Your parents live here. Shouldn't you buy another batch of servants? Gu Yundong said, I want Madame Jiang to come over. Besides Shui Tao and Shui Rong, it should be enough. Aunt Ku couldn't help but roll her eyes. Ms. Jiang and Tong Ping are husband and wife. You ask Ms. Jiang to come over, but Tong Ping is alone in Yongfu village? Aren't you committing a sin? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Was it that serious? And Tong Shuitao. What was wrong with Shuitao? She didn't have a husband, right? Chapter 637. The four from the Lu family and Ku felt that although Gu Yundong was smart, there was still something to learn in this aspect. Shuitao is indeed not bad, but she's jumpy and thinks about going out all day long. She's not meticulous enough. She's suitable to follow you, and you like to run around. However, it's not suitable for her to take care of your mother. With your mother's personality, she should find someone more meticulous. Gu Yundong thought about it and felt that it made sense. Not only did the servant have to be more meticulous, but they also had to be smart. She remembered what happened to Jiang Yongkang last time. It was hard to guarantee that no one would have designs on her mother now. Also, when her father checked the house yesterday, a woman had already winked at her father. Speaking of which, she was so young and beautiful, but no one had seduced her. Her parents' market price was actually better than hers. Gu Yundong had deep doubts about her charm. However, when she saw Xiao Qingyuan beside her, this suspicion was dispelled by her. Still, Aunt Ku was right. They indeed had to buy a batch of servants. There was no need for a lot. 3 to 4 people in a family was enough. Thus, after lunch, Gu Yundong brought Madame Yang and Kiki to the agency with Aunt Ku. She felt that since they were bought to take care of Madame Yang and Kiki, they had to be pleasing to the eye. This time, Gu Yundong's requirements were slightly higher. She wanted to find someone who could read. It would be best if it was a family. Other than taking care of Madame Yang, she also needed someone to work at home and look after the family. Once the requirements were high, it would not be easy to find them. After going to 2 agencies, she finally found what she wanted. The family's surname was Lu. The couple had 2 daughters. One of them was about the same age as Gu Yundong and looked clean and pretty. When she smiled, she revealed a small dimple and looked especially likable. At that time, when she smiled, Madame Yang also smiled. Moreover, she could read. It was said that she used to be a second-class maidservant in a rich family. Because she had served Miss since she was young, she learned something from her. However, when she grew up and became beautiful, that young master took a fancy to her and wanted to take her as a concubine. She was not happy. Because of this matter was stirred up for a few days. In the end, Madame found out and beat them up before selling their entire family. This girl's name was Lu Hongxiu. She spoke softly, gently, and carefully. Moreover, she knew who was in charge. She did not even look at Xiao Qingyuan, which satisfied Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong almost rolled her eyes when she saw other girls looking at Xiao Qingyuan while she interviewed them. The Lu couple was also honest. Lu Sheng was about the same age as Gu Dajiang. He used to run errands for the master. His wife, Madame Niu, worked in the kitchen. Because she wasn't competitive, she was just a kitchen helper, but according to her, her culinary skills were actually not bad. Both of them were very diligent. They also had a younger daughter called Lu Hongxiao. She was about 7 or 8 years old. It was just nice that she could be a companion with Yunka. The little girl already had friends in Yongfu village. She was still very unfamiliar here. Yunshu was not around either. Only when she had a child of about the same age to play with could her be cheered up. When the 4 members of the Lu family were brought back, they were still a little nervous. They only looked at each other when they stood in front of the small house. They took a deep breath and followed Gu Yundong in. Unexpectedly, just as they entered, a voice suddenly sounded in their ears. Is Lady Gu back? Is Lady Gu back? It was not just the 4 members of the Lu family. Even Gu Yundong and the others were so frightened by this unfamiliar voice that they almost turned around and left. Gu Yundong quickly told him to calm down. Master Xia, wait for a while. I've just returned home. I can only calm down and look at the paintings after I've arranged everything, right? Master Xia wanted to ask her to leave everything to Gu Dajiang, but he was in someone else's house after all. It was not good to go overboard. Therefore, he could only suppress her desire and look at Gu Yundong eagerly, hoping that she could finish everything in an instant. Gu Yundong was speechless. She heaved a sigh of relief and explained the background of the 4 people from the Lu family to Father Gu. Then, she asked Tong Shuitao and Shui Rong to bring them away and settle them down. After everyone was busy with their own things, she followed the impatient Master Xia to the study. The study had just been tidied up not long ago. There was a huge desk in front of the window sill, and the pen rack on the table was already prepared. Moreover, the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were all done. She didn't know if Ah Shu and the others had arranged them beforehand or after Master Xia arrived. What shocked Gu Yundong was the pile of things on the table. Chapter 639, Same lecture hall, come. Sit here. Master Xia held the stool enthusiastically. He was not embarrassed by the overly enthusiasm at all. At one point, Gu Yundong even felt that this was Master Xia's home. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She pointed at the paintings piled on the table, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. Don't tell me you drew all these. Do you want me to finish reading them today? Master Xia was stunned, as if he had just realized that this was a difficult situation. He immediately laughed dryly and reached out to remove half of the paintings. Gu Yundong was speechless. Seeing that she didn't say anything, Master Xia thought for a moment and took off half of the paintings. Gu Yundong still did not speak. Master Xia gritted his teeth and removed 3 scrolls. But Gu Yundong remained calm. Master Xia could not hold it in anymore. No more. There are no more than 20 paintings here. Gu Yundong rubbed her forehead and said, Master Xia, actually, I think 1 painting should be enough. You've practiced so many paintings. You must have figured out many drawing methods by yourself and gained a lot of comprehension in your mind. Then I don't think there are many problems. Let's discuss and study 1 painting. You can find out what's wrong with the subsequent paintings, right? Master Xia felt that what she said made a lot of sense. Hence, he nodded and began to search the pile of paintings for a long time. Gu Yundong looked up and met Gu Dajiang's eyes. After a long time, seeing that Master Xia had yet to come out, Gu Yundong simply went to chat with Gu Dajiang. Did father's trip to the academy go smoothly today? Don't worry, it's quite good. I've already paid my tuition fees. The academy has already given me student robes and told me some of the academy's rules and school time. Someone even brought father to the academy's canteen. They originally wanted to arrange a dormitory, but we have a place to stay, so I didn't go. Gu Dajiang felt a little emotional. To be honest, this was his first time attending school. Although he had read books when he was young, he had only studied at the old elementary scholar's house. There were no classmates. Now that he had classmates, this feeling was actually very novel. By the way, I'm in the same lecture hall as Qi Ting now. However, Qi Ting didn't seem to be in the academy today. Instead, Zhuo Guang and the others he saw yesterday were there. When they saw him, they greeted him happily. Gu Dajiang had only gone to familiarize himself with the school. Classes would only officially start tomorrow. Gu Yundong was very surprised and more or less relieved. Although Qi Ting was at Sundra, he was not a bad person. The few people who were good friends with him were also quite cute. He had known them yesterday, so he was not worried that he would not be able to fit in. As the father and daughter were talking, Master Xia finally found the painting. When he took it out, Yundong wanted to faint. As expected, he did not suffer any losses. He actually found a painting that was as complicated as the river diagram on the Qingming festival. Master Xia looked at her happily. "Come, take a look first." Yundong did not want to look at it at all. Her eyes were filled with deep disdain. If she had known earlier, she would not have asked him to search just now. It would have been better if she had just taken a random painting. No, the key was that while Master Xia could not feel anything, why did he have to challenge such a complicated painting? However, since she had agreed, she calmed down and looked at the painting carefully. Fortunately, although the painting was complicated, the technique was traceable. Yundong quickly discovered Master Xia's problem. Chapter 640, My Condolences. Yundong was also a painter. She was very patient with Mr. Xia, who was like-minded. Seeing that the two of them had already started discussing, Dajiang picked up a book and sat quietly at the side to read. It was only when Xianxia came in that he went out to talk to his wife and daughter. After some time, Yundong raised her head and rubbed her sore neck. A cup of tea suddenly appeared in her hand. She looked up and met Xianxia's dissatisfied expression. She immediately smiled. Xianxia was dissatisfied with Master Xia, so he didn't even serve him tea. However, Master Xia didn't care at all. He didn't even realize that Dajiang had long changed to Xianxia in the room. He only nodded repeatedly with his painting. "Excellent, excellent. With Miss Gus' guidance, it's as if I've been enlightened. I've learned a lot." Master Xia laughed and put down the painting in his hand. He went to take another one. This time, Yundong did not need to say anything. He could find the problem himself. He immediately beamed with joy and danced with joy. After a long while, he calmed down and asked Yundong, "Yundong, your painting skills are so good. Your teacher must be a big shot in the current era. I wonder where he is now. Can you introduce him?" Yundong said, "I might never see him again in this lifetime." Her teacher was in another world. However, Master Xia misunderstood and thought that her teacher was no longer in this world. He immediately sighed. The heavens are jealous of geniuses. My condolences. Yundong was speechless. Master Xia did not continue the topic. He flipped through his paintings again. After looking at them for a while, he took out a blank piece of paper and began to draw with a charcoal pen. This time, it was as if God was helping him. It was exceptionally smooth and felt. The smile on Master Xia's face never faded. Yundong shook her head. Although she liked to draw, it was nothing compared to Master Xia's hunger. She didn't disturb him and walked out of the study with Xianxia. It was only in the evening that Yundong re-entered the study and called Master Xia, who had forgotten to eat and sleep, out for dinner. Today was considered a housewarming. Yundong personally cooked many good dishes. In the beginning, Master Xia was unwilling to go out. Now that his inspiration had exploded, he had endless energy. It would not be a problem for him to stay in the study until the end of time. However, after Yundong twirled the fried chicken drumstick around his nose, he decisively put down the charcoal pen and quickly ran to the reception hall. There were a lot of people, so they had to be divided into 2 tables to sit down. In fact, Yundong had wanted to invite Niatsong over for such an important day. After all, they had moved to the prefectural city. She had to let her friend know her address and get to know her family. Unfortunately, Niatsong was not around. Auntie said that he had been sent elsewhere by his father to train. Therefore, Master Xia was the only guest in the Gu family. Either table was filled with more than 10 dishes. Firstly, it was to celebrate the housewarming, and secondly, it was to celebrate Dajiang's entrance into school. Wouldn't everyone be happy? After everyone was full, Dajiang personally sent Master Xia out. Then, he got Shui Rong to drive the carriage back to the academy. On this trip, Master Xia had made a breakthrough in his painting skills. He had also eaten until his mouth was full of oil. He was already satisfied. Yes, he could still find an excuse to eat next time. That Gu girl's culinary skills were too good. Not only was she good at cooking, but she was also good-looking. It was a pity that she was already engaged. Otherwise, he would have a lot of young talents to introduce to her. The lively courtyard finally quietened down. After everyone had cleaned up, Gu Yundong got up and walked towards the Lu family's house. Chapter 641. Gu Yundong's arrangement. Lu Hongxiu was a meticulous person, so when Tong Shuitao led them to tidy up the rooms, she learned some things about the Gu family from her. After knowing that the Gu family was simple, the old master and young mistress were very kind to the servants, and there were no lecherous young masters, the 4 members of the Lu family heaved a sigh of relief. The uneasiness of coming to this unfamiliar new master's house gradually eased. Hence, when Gu Yundong came to look for them, the Lu family was not too panicked except for a trace of fear. Gu Yundong's gaze swept across the 4 of them and finally stopped on Lu Hongxiu. Half a day has passed. I think you should know the situation at home from Shuitao. Lu Hongxiu was shocked and quickly knelt down. Miss, please forgive me. I was wrong. I shouldn't have asked. Get up. Gu Yundong interrupted her. Lu Hongxiu was stunned. She looked up slightly and carefully glanced at Gu Yundong. Seeing that she did not seem to blame her, she slowly stood up. However, she was still nervous. She did not expect Miss to see through her thoughts at a glance. Lu Hongxiu panicked. She had just arrived and had already left such a bad impression on her mistress. But Gu Yundong said, "It's normal for you to inquire about the master's situation in advance. As long as it's not about the master's privacy, I won't stop you from doing this. It means that you're thorough and cautious." The 4 members of the Lu family were slightly relieved. Gu Yundong said, "Since you already know what our family does, I won't say anything else. From now on, as long as you're loyal to the Gu family, I won't treat you badly. As for what you have to do, I've said it before. It's mainly to take care of my mother and my sister. Hongxiu is meticulous. From now on, she will follow my mother. You know that my mother is like a child now, so you don't have to restrain her. She can do whatever she wants. If she wants to work or go out, she can do whatever she wants. You will help her, but don't let her cross the line. Also, don't let anyone bully her. If you encounter anyone with ill intentions who wants to deceive my mother, feel free to tell me or my father. Hongxiao will stay with Kiki. She likes to eat. Watch her. Don't let her eat too much. Uncle Lu will be in charge of the family matters, especially my father's schoolmates. You have to treat them well. Auntie Miao used to help in the kitchen. You'll have to take care of the stove in the future." The 4 members of the Lu family hurriedly agreed. Gu Yundong had already explained the main point clearly. They knew what else to do. After giving her instructions, Gu Yundong stood up. "It's getting late. You guys should rest early. Take care, Mississippi." After Gu Yundong left, the 4 members of the Lu family looked at each other. After a long time, Lu Xing said, "Go to sleep. We'll be busy tomorrow morning." The 3 of them did not say anything and nodded. They went to bed. Gu Yundong left the house and went straight to Gu Dajiang and Madame Yang's room. She told them the location of the shop she had seen today and the staff she had recruited. At the same time, she instructed Ah Shu to set off for Yongfu village tomorrow morning and ask Uncle Feng if he was coming to the prefectural city. Ah Shu agreed happily. The next morning, he rode his horse and left the prefectural city at full speed. At the same time, Gu Dajiang successfully became a student of Tianhai Academy. Madame Yang was staying at the house, and Lu Hongxiu was taking care of her. Aunt Ke was also staying here temporarily, so Gu Yundong was completely at ease. Chapter 642. It's not a small shop. Gu Yundong, on the other hand, focused on drawing the shop's blueprint. As expected, Feng Danning brought 2 workers to the prefectural city on the 3rd day. He was very happy and energetic. He looked very motivated. Gu Yundong wanted him to rest for a day, but he refused. The moment he arrived, he asked her to bring him to the shop to take a look. Gu Yundong could only bring him to the shop and explain the situation to him with the blueprint in her hand. Previously, in Fengkai County, Feng Danning had already experienced it. The shop here was much larger, but the style was not too different. He had an idea. The interior renovation was mainly carpentry work, so the 2 handymen Feng Danning brought this time were good at this. Soon, the shop was bustling with activity. After Jianghu and the others left that day, Su Changshan went to Dahue Road every day to take a look. He was a little worried when he saw that the door was not open. At this moment, he finally saw Jianghu's figure and hurriedly ran over. Jianghu was shocked to see him. "Why are you here?" Su Changshan chuckled. "I'm here to help." "Rascal." Jianghu smiled and patted his head. He did not stop him and led him into the shop. Gu Yundong was also very surprised to see him, but she was naturally happy to see him so diligent. Su Changshan was really the type of person who did not talk much but worked very hard. Occasionally, when Gu Yundong and Feng Danning discussed the structure of the shop, he would listen quietly at the side. He looked like he did not understand but was trying his best to learn. He was actually a little cute. Gu Yundong had asked a waiter from a nearby restaurant to deliver lunch. The food was delicious, but it was a little expensive. Seeing this, Su Changshan fell into deep thought. When they returned at night, it was a little late. Su Changshan was still covered in sawdust and looked dirty. When the woman next door saw this, she immediately smiled. "You ran out every day and came back listless. I knew that no shop would hire you as a shop assistant at all. Today, you finally started to look for work elsewhere? TSK, TSK, TSK. You even showed me your attitude a few days ago. Serves you right." Su Changshan ignored her and entered the courtyard excitedly. Mother Su was a little surprised to see him like this. "Is the shop not open yet?" "It's open. I saw the owner and Uncle Zheng today. The shop is being renovated. I've been helping for the entire day." Mother Su's eyes lit up. That's good, that's good. I've been worried for the past few days. I was afraid that something would happen." "Mother, don't worry. Uncle Zheng won't lie to me." Su Changshan entered the house and changed his clothes. When he came out, he said to Mother Su, "Mother, before I came back, I told the owner that there's a master working in the shop these few days. It's not convenient to eat or boil water. I thought that you should help cook for 2 days." The owner agreed. Mother Su was pleasantly surprised. "Really? I can cook for a few days?" "Yes, the boss plans to pay Mother 50 copper coins a day. It's just cooking for a few days. There's no need for money. There's no need for so much money." Su Changshan was helpless. He had said the same thing, but the boss insisted on giving it to him. He was not as eloquent as the boss, so he could only agree. Therefore, the next day, Su Chang took Mother Su to Dahue Road early in the morning. Looking at the huge 2-story shop in front of her, Mother Su's eyes could not help but widen. No, wasn't it a small shop? Chapter 643, Flower. At first, Mother Su really thought that it was just a small shop. The shop where her son used to be a shop assistant was not very big. However, regardless of whether it was a small shop or not, as long as her son had a stable job, it was much better than being a porter outside every day. Therefore, she did not even ask how much his salary was. Unexpectedly, this shop was so big. Not only were there 2 floors, but the inside was also surprisingly big. She was very happy. With such a big shop, the Gu family's business was definitely not small. Such a big shop's owner even took a fancy to her son as a shop assistant. In the future, when the Gu family's business grew bigger, Changshan would also rise and become more promising. At this moment, Mother Su heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Yundong also came early. When she saw Mother Su, she walked over with a smile. "I'll have to trouble Auntie for the next few days. This is the money for groceries. Auntie, feel free to cook any food. The workers do hard labor. The food can't be bad." Mother Su looked at the 5 taels of silver in her hand and could not help but tremble. This boss Gu was too magnanimous. This was only the second time they met, and she gave her silver just like that. She even gave her 5 taels in one go. Wasn't she afraid that she would embezzle the money? Seeing that she did not speak for a long time, Gu Yundong asked curiously, "What's wrong, Aunt? Is there a problem?" "No, no problem. I'll go buy groceries now. I guarantee that the workers will be full." Mother Su carefully took the silver and quickly found someone to ask about the market before leaving in a hurry. Gu Yundong did not have to worry about these things. She was also very busy. This was her first step out of Fengkai County, so she took it very seriously. She had personally watched over the renovation of the shop. As for transporting goods, Xiao Qingyuan had already brought Ah Zhu and the others back to Yongfu village. This was the first time they transported goods from Yongfu village to the Xuanhe prefecture. Xiao Qingyuan had to personally lead the way before he could be at ease. He would leave the rest of the trips to Tongping and Xinjianbao. Fortunately, Uncle Feng and the rest were already familiar with it. There was no problem in communication, which made Gu Yundong much less worried. Not long after, Mother Su returned with a basket full of vegetables. At the same time, she was holding a flower in her hand, a bright and tender yellow sunflower. Gu Yundong was stunned. The flower was beautiful. She suddenly thought of what Gu Dajiang had mentioned about Madame Yang's love for planting flowers. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment and could not help but stop what she was doing. Yes, she was very busy, but she seemed to have neglected many things. Indeed, she saw a little girl squatting in front of a stall. However, the little girl was not in a good state at this moment. There was a small potted plant in front of her that had shattered. The flowers inside were lying on the ground, revealing their tender roots. The little girl wiped her tears sadly and carefully picked up the flower and placed it aside. Then, she slowly placed the soil on the ground into the broken jar. Gu Yundong had just frowned when she heard a mean voice. "Serves you right. Who asked you to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit? 20 copper coins for a pot is not cheap. I wanted all your flowers in one go. You and your mother could go home earlier, but you refused. You really don't know what's good for you." Gu Yundong looked in the direction of the voice and saw a middle-aged man standing there. She paused. She felt that this person looked familiar. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.